6 a.m. and I call this committee meeting to order. To introduce the members of the committee present here today, we have to my left Senator Dennis Mendiola, to my right Senator Jude Hoff-Schneider. Joining us online is Senator Carl King Neighbors. I am Donald Maloney, Chair for Fiscal Affairs. And with 4 members present, we have the quorum to proceed with today's meeting. Please note, Senators Paul and Karina are on their way, and Senator Babalta is excused from today's hearing. And also, I'd like to introduce the staff assisting the committee. We have our legal counsel, Joe Bermudez, fiscal analyst, David Lemapon, our sergeant at arms, Ben Terlahi, IT, Del Camacho, and LJ Castro, and assisting the committee are our LAs, Jolyn Duenas Stagabo and Devin Macaranas. All right, with that, members, can I get a motion for the adoption of today's agenda?
Second.
All right, motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We now move down to public comments, and floor is now open for any member of the public who wishes to make any comments. Looks like we have none, and so we now move down to introduction. Good morning again to everyone present here today. We have the Department of Land and Natural Resources before us. And according to the budget, the DNR consists of 5 divisions. We have the Secretary's Office, Agriculture, Fish and Wildlife, Parks and Recreation, Soil and Water Conservation. The department as a whole submitted a request of $3.5 million for 94 FTEs. However, 2.9 was allocated for personnel, which leaves a shortfall there. I'm sorry, 1.5 was allocated for personnel for the 90 FTEs. And we also have I believe they've requesting to maintain the partial allocation for Parks and Recs, which will be, and the proposal is to have the other half of their salaries covered by DPL. And so what we want to hear is how has that worked in the current fiscal year? And also, if you have any information on the your revolving fund accounts, if we can have an updated list according to our records. As of the time of the budget, the revised budget submission, there's at least 2.3 million that is within your revolving accounts within the 5 different divisions. And so if you can provide some clarity on that. And with that, I would like to invite Secretary Igor Somar, as well as any member of your team who will be assisting you today, to join us in the chamber. We can utilize more of the seats to the close to Senators Jude and Dennis. At this time, Secretary, I'll hand the floor over to you if you'd like to provide any information to the committee.
My chair, Tiro, half a day. Good morning. Your Department of Lands and Natural Resources is here to provide any information that is needed. I would like to introduce myself and my team. My name is Sylvan Olopayigisomar. I am the Secretary of the Department of Lands and Natural Resources. To my right here is the Director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. Mike Cruz. To my left is Acting Director of Division of Fish and Wildlife, Ms. Rosemary Camacho. To her left is Director of Agriculture, Mr. Jack Ogumuro. And to Jack's right is another Jack, Mr. Jack Song Song, Director of Lands and Survey. And on the Senate seat here to my right is my special advisor, Mr. Floyd Mosca. And across from him is our invasive species coordinator, Ms. Natasha Tomkani. Good morning, Chair. And if you would like, I can jump right into the presentation we prepared for you.
Yes, please proceed.
At any time, please interrupt me and ask questions. We'll try to go through it systematically, program by program and division by division. Uh, Before I start, I want to say unequivocally that we support the administration's budget submission. And what we'll be presenting today is if for some miracle there's some money that pops out of the sky, if you would consider some of our asks, as they are critical to our providing the services that we do. Thank you. So this slide here uh, speaks to the mandates, the enabling legislation that created our department, and all the different things that we are mandated to do. Uh, Department, the divisions. And out of my office, the secretary's office, there are a few of us that are locally funded. That includes myself, my advisor, my secretary, an administrative officer three, soil and water conservation admin assistant that is not that was not budgeted for, and an animal health clinic manager, and one other position that we uh, send over to Fish and Wildlife to provide some support out there. The animal health clinic manager's position is supported by what used to be the veterinarian's salary, and what we did there was divide that up into portions so that it helps fund this manager, who is Miss Lauren Cabrera, a practicing nurse who has now turned her passion to helping animals and things like that. And she's been super effective, and we're very lucky to have her. She currently runs also the Saipan Humane Society, and she's now a member of our team. And then, as far as equipments are concerned, out of the secretary's office are the vessel Querida and the pickup truck. We have here revolving fund as none, because all the revolving funds are under each of the divisions, although I'm the expenditure authority. Uh, Specifically for the secretary's office, there are none, no revolving funds.
Sorry, since you brought that up, we do have the representative from OMB, Ms. Jasmine Camacho, here to answer any questions relative to the budget. And seeing as how you said there wasn't any revolving fund, Ms. Jasmine, under the special fund submission, it indicates a fund balance under the DNR secretary. And if you can just look through that real quickly, and then we can come back to that as after the presentation. Please proceed, Secretary.
Thank you. This next slide speaks to some of the programs that, aside from the divisions that are under the department, some of the programs that were created or were migrated over to the secretary's office for one reason or another. And one of them is the invasive species program. This is a new program. It services CNMI wide, and it looks at the broader picture of what's happening in light of all the different things that are coming down from um, the military activities and our concerns with that. And so there are a bunch of uh, components that are happening at the same time. What we envision for this program is to consolidate all of those and try to be the quarterback, for so to speak, for all of our efforts in preventing invasive species from coming into the CNMI. And so currently we have our invasive species coordinator here and an administrative assistant who are funded out of that program. Um, we're still trying to hire a biologist. We have a team down there in Rhoda, five of them who are working under the Rhino Beetle grant. We have vacancies on Tinian that we're looking to fill as soon as possible. Um, and we have two others who are doing Makuna, the invasive vine that is very itchy, who are here. Here are a list of some of the equipments under this program. The other program under the secretary's office and um, currently is the Core Reef Initiative. This is a program that works in collaboration with BECQ and so CRM and DEQ. It aims to try to work on whatever needs to happen to make sure our coral reefs and their restoration are in good working order. Uh, Currently, we have one person funded out of DLNR that is on the grant, um, but we aim to change that sometime soon to include other programs that or projects that used to be funded out of the on this program in previous years, which includes a MPA coordinator, enforcement, marine enforcement officers, and those types of things. But it's a timing situation where the grant was submitted and um, as, before I got on board, and so we were not able to provide input into the grant at that time. Now we move to the different divisions under DLNR. There are four of them. You had mentioned five, soil and water. We didn't put it on here since it wasn't funded, but it is an integral part of our department. And there's big projects that are coming down in that particular division. But we'll go with what we have here for now: Division of Agriculture, Division of Fish and Wildlife, Land Registration and Survey, and Division of Parks and Recreation. We'll start with Division of Agriculture. Agriculture is tasked to assisting local farmers and ranchers um, promote high quality produce and services, promote sound agricultural practices, food security, as well as enhance and maintain current farming and ranging activities. The division has 17 locally funded FTEs currently. One of them is currently vacant and has been zeroed out. Uh, there are six of them are federally funded. One of the federally funded folks are on Rhoda. Here's a list of the equipments that we currently have in the division, and here are the revolving accounts under agriculture. I recently learned of the last one here, DPL Kagman Farm Plot water fees, and slowly unpacking what that all is about. So here are the revolving accounts. Uh, because of our financial shortfall in the budget, one of the things that I'm working on is using these a combination of these revolving accounts to pay for a contract that we currently have with the Guam State Vet, who is we currently have a contract with her now, but for end of September, that contract sunsets, and so because it was not budgeted for, we are tapping into some of these revolving accounts to essentially pay for that contract. And it's a unique approach because our there is a nationwide shortage of veterinarians, and the pay, we are not very competitive in the compensation. And for folks who go to school for veterinary, the the debt that one accumulates is astronomical, and so uh, we're trying to be as creative as we can in recruiting for this particular service that we are required to provide to our community. So right now we are tapping into our revolving funds to compensate for that contract. These are some of the programs under the Division of Agriculture, the services that we provide. They're pretty broad and diverse, from equipment rental to assisting them with livestock health care, pets when they need shots and those types of situations. We have the Garapan Public Market under our division, the farm plot out there. We are working on getting the regulations updated so that we can be a little bit more diverse in how we um, we bring in farmers. We're trying to look at ways to entice the younger generation to participate in agriculture, farming, or ranching. Um, then, of course, we have the Mafala Breadfruit Tree Program and a bunch of federal grants that have been very helpful to our farmers and ranchers. This slide here just speaks to some of the ways that our division has collaborated with the municipalities and their needs in the realm of agriculture. So we have CRB program out there, funding for transportation. We share costs on utilities and communication, uh, and so on. This slide speaks to the efforts on ROTA. This slide here talks to the efforts that and collaboration on Tinian specifically. As I mentioned earlier, there's several. Um, we're trying hard to tap as much as possible on federal funds to provide for equipments and uh, other types of assistances that we can provide, as we recognize that agriculture is one of the most central if not the most important division in our department, as it aims to safeguard food security and try to enhance these independence from outside things that we're having to go and buy, what, with all the inflation and things, trying to have our folks learn how to be more self-sufficient and uh, plant their own things. Here are some more activities of collaboration with our municipalities. And some more. And I'm sure we printed out copies of these slides for your ready reference. So just zoom on through. If you do have questions, please stop me. And so the needs for the Division of Agriculture, one of our biggest challenge right now is the utility cost for running those water pumps for the farm plots. I think and I'll defer to the director here regarding our monthly bills for the pumps. Uh, Director Jack, are we, I believe the figure was around 50,000 a month.
Yeah, that's correct. 50 to 55.
And so we're trying to figure out better ways to managing that. I know currently it is on the department's shoulder to pay for these things, and I think that is not correct. It should be user pay, whoever's using it should pay for it. And so we're trying to figure what is the happy medium on that, because as you can see, we have zero operational costs, and our revolving accounts do not are incapable of catching up with the cost of running those water pumps. So below down there is a strategy that we're trying to figure out: increasing fees, potentially installing water meters for each of the farm plots, so that folks are more aware of their usages. The last bullet down there is a wish list that we are hoping to. We are always looking out for grants to try to obtain. These are very important equipment that help our farmers and ranchers as well. So we're working with either grants or looking at grants or the governor's office to see if we can find funding for these critical needs. That ends the Division of Agriculture presentation. Any questions on the Division of Agriculture?
Senator Mendiola.
No, I was just gonna ask about this Sabana, this native tree restoration project. I'm looking at that the grant is expiring September 30, and you guys are looking at requesting for extension because you guys still have funding. So I was just curious if there's any impact should we not get that extension on that, and what is like the remaining balance that you're looking at for extension in terms of extension. What is the remaining balance that you guys need that extension for?
Director Jack?
The project, if I'm not mistaken, I think we requested for an extension. The other project that is not allowed to be extended anymore because it has maxed out its life expectancy is the Talacaza project. But the Sabana project, I believe is going to be extended.
And that's inclusive of the 75,000 I'm looking at on this
Yeah.
slide. Okay.
Whatever money is still there, will
So extension is permitted, meaning you guys should be able to extend that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. Senator Jude.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Secretary, and to your team. Welcome to the Senate. Just to follow through on as far as the grants, as indicated in your slide presentation, can you expound more on the program that is being extended for the second senatorial district as far as the UCF forest stewardship? Is there any designation of any area on Tinian where there's a like an Arbor Day or any program to that effect as far as this program itself?
the forestry program.
Anything that is indicative of the presentation that was made earlier by the secretary? Like, for example, Senator Mendiola was asking about the Sabana, and to what extent what are the programs that it's intended to the municipalities?
Oh, under our forestry program, Tinian is being provided with funds to run their small activities down there. For instance, the nursery. And as we speak, 4 or 5 forest staff are coming back from Rhoda, where they erected the high tunnel. They did the same thing on Tinian last week. That is under one of our federal program too. Tinian municipality or Tinian residents were afforded the opportunity to apply for the microgrant program, and they've also have been a recipient of our specialty crop program. Recently, there were some applicants from Tinian who also submitted their application under our resilient food system infrastructure program, which we're very fortunate to have close to $2 million from the USDA.
So these are like been extended to the two senatorial districts by way of going down and presenting it to the stakeholders there.
Right.
For the food producers.
Yeah, we would visit the 2 islands and do a public session on our programs, and we also announced the availability of funds under this program for about a month before the deadline for the people to submit their applications.
Recognize Senator Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, secretaries and staff. Just a few questions here on Department of Agriculture. Right on Saipan, you have only 2 tractors here,
That's correct.
and they're both operating,
Not at the moment.
or both are down.
Yeah, one still operates, but it needs repair. Every time it gets heated up, this light will come on, and that light means that they have to shut it down, or else it's gonna create more problem.
That's,
The other one is under repair. It's at the shop now.
well, we're not getting any new tractor from federal grants, or none.
No.
I was going to borrow some for Rhoda and I, because we also have 2, and both of them are not running also, and that's why I was going to ask, please, for your help, secretaries and director. And we have a practically brand new tractor, but the warranty ran out, I think, and the electrical system is one of those advanced equipment, and nobody knows how to fix it. But I hear that for the longest time, think more than a year already, and so brand new equipment, and we bought it, but we didn't ensure that there's a way if it goes down we repair it. So can you please help us look into that? And I don't know whether it's about money or about finding the right person to fix it, but I hope you can help our hardworking RD down in Rhoda that needs help to get this back up. Our farmers are waiting for it, and I feel for the farmers because some manage to buy a used tractor, they run it on their own, but not other farmers. They cannot afford it, so they need the service, and that's been down for more than a year. They have another one, but I'm told that it requires about $11,000 repair parts. So that's the second one that's down also. So I appreciate you can look into that and kind of put it in your budget request, maybe as part of your assistance to the first senatorial district. I see a few lists here that you are subsidizing, helping the first senatorial district. So that can be included. I understand that there's a BECQ grant that you are successful. I don't know who handles that, and I think that it might be here already, the new tractor, and it just needs shipping to be sent down. Anybody knows about that?
Yes, the cinema got awarded Tinian Municipality and Parks and Recreation under the DERA grant. This is a one-to-one swap. We have a tractor that's like maybe as old as as old as me, the Kubota tractor, but we gotta salvage that. That's the part of the agreement is to salvage the tractor that we have. But we did acquire one. Right now, it's under. They're working to get it ITB. There's a tractor here that was ordered during the last administration during ARPA funding, but it wasn't. There's no money for it. Somebody just ordered it, so we were trying to get that, but according to EPA, we got a ITB, the contract.
Also, the tractors here.
We're trying to get that tractor, but
Oh, you have to beat it out.
We need to make it fair and let a ITB process run it. And
Also, that's for Tinian.
no, they have one for Tinian and one for us, but I'm only working with the one we have. We got awarded. Both grants were awarded at the same time.
Is that
One
from
for-
the BECQ?
Yes,
grant?
they're a
Yeah.
grant.
Mhm.
That's the one-to-one swap.
Okay.
Yeah. So we already, the money's here. BECQ.
Also, you already put out an ITB.
Okay, we did what was required of me to do is get the specs out, and then we'll send it to BECQ. They will do all the advertising for the bidding process.
I appreciate if you can speed that up. We don't have one tractor on Rhoda, and so the world is gonna run out of sweet potatoes soon.
Yeah,
From
we're trying
Rhoda.
our best, but we have to follow their process. I can push, but I cannot guarantee you by tomorrow. But yeah,
Particularly,
actually, yes.
So maybe hopefully that will make it the third tractor on Rhoda, no? Hopefully
No, that's for Parks and Recreation Saipan.
for Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that there was one. I thought there was one for Rhoda also from BECQ.
Yeah, I got all the grand awards and it's municipality of Tinian. And
So we cannot move the one from Tinian to.
oh, Lanya, that's not that's out of my purview. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe we should get more grant, but the other one is the old tractor and about 11,000 to repair, no?
No, we'll try and let the secretary order us to. We'll see and what we can do.
In the interim, Senator, if I may offer, we do have highly skilled mechanics and specialists in our roster, and we can send some of those guys down to do some troubleshooting on the current equipment out there and see where we can go from there. I think that would be a quicker solution. And while we're considering,
There's nobody on the island that has that expertise.
I believe we do have some folks who are highly qualified in DLNR in general, actually from Parks and Rec, who are
Because again, like I said, that's been down for a year, more
Yeah.
than a year, I believe.
We'll work on that. Director, please remind me to
Okay.
send somebody down.
Just one for now. Secretary, you wrote a letter to the delegation regarding MV Juliana that we were following up, the small vessel on Rhoda that is capable of just going up to a ram and they can load a vehicle. Where is SCM again? SCM launching ram. Where's that?
That would be Smiling Cove Marina.
Okay, and
SCM.
where's and so the fishing base is ram is the one in front of the Cristo Rey Church, right?
Correct.
Oh, and so for that ram, you're saying that there's some flexibility to be used temporarily by that vessel if they're willing to go there, right? That should be sufficient.
That's correct. Yes. Because
Okay.
there's some federal technicalities that is tied to the Smiling Cove Marina. It's the
No, I think that's okay. The fishing base, if they
Right.
can do it out of
Yeah.
there, I think that should be
absolutely.
sufficient. And what kind of insurance is required? Do they other boats just come in there, right? Without insurance, I understand they only they have an agreement with whoever they're transporting. You know that it's at their risk. It's just enough to carry one car.
Currently at the Smiling Cove Marina, no commercial activity occurs, but at the fishing base, we would just ask for some liability insurance in the event there was some damage because we don't have local funds to make any repairs that would be needed.
Okay, I appreciate your flexibility on that, and we'll inform them. And of course, I don't think they mind going to that other ramp if they're allowed, because for Rhoda right now we have no crane on the island. It will be hard to bring in a vehicle and then that requires a crane. So if that can be allowed, at least we can address that situation for the short period. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Senator Mendiola.
Actually, I was going to ask the same, but you addressed that. But since you recognize me, Chair, let me just go back to that rhino beetle, and I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit on the rhino beetle and the efforts that the guys in Rhoda are doing. I'm sure you guys are tracking that tremendously. So I just wanted to hear if our efforts are actually maintaining that, so it doesn't it doesn't, I guess, go throughout or invade the rest of the island. And in terms of funding, where we at on the rhino beetle funding?
Thank you, Senator. I'll recognize my invasive species coordinator here to give us some insight on the project.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, Senator, for your question. There is undisputable recognition that the CRB is infested. The infestation spread in Rhoda is very wide. We do have OIA-funded programs for the 5 staff that are currently there. In fact, if you look at the recent presentation that we made at TCIW in Hawaii to establish more need for funding in Rhoda, we have identified 477 traps that are island-wide. And so we use that to emphasize the need to protect our people and resources that are affected by CRB. We've also submitted a grant application to OIA to continue funding. And in fact, we are requesting for additional funds to increase our capacity there for our program. So we're waiting to hear back. The determination for that comes out in September. But we are following closely with our grantors.
Thank you very much. And I just asked that question because I guess, again, it's a serious problem, and
Yeah,
everybody in
absolutely.
here agrees with that. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. Senator Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good morning to the Eleanor. First, thank you guys for, personally, I see some of you guys out there, especially my good friend over there to your right, Secretary, for, him and his team. I see them often sometimes when I go out. So I want to thank them for all the work they're doing, as well as Director Jack and his team at Division of Agriculture. But, I wanted to mention that, because it's a fairly large agency, and I understand all the efforts too. But just continuing on the assistance to primarily in the second senatorial district, and can you elaborate more on what I'm going to write on Senator Mendiola's question on CRB. So when you say additional, what does that mean? Just to contain it on Rhoda? Is there any other efforts to not make sure that it doesn't get supplanted somewhere else in the CNMI? Like, for example, let me just ask, do we do random checks on airlines, air transport, and surface vessel transports that are coming in?
The movement of some of these species are such that it's difficult for us to. So it's because of the distance between Rhoda and Guam. Those things can fly over to Rhoda and not necessarily as stowaways on aircrafts or vessels. And so they're attracted to lights. What we're trying to, I think there is only one jurisdiction that has ever successfully eradicated the rhino beetle, and that is the Kingdom of Tonga. And they shut down the entire island, and all they did was focus every effort on trying to get rid of it. We're hopeful that we are not. It has not gotten so bad that we can still do something about it. We're working very closely with all of our partners within the region, federal and regional folks, to try to figure out other techniques and methods of trying to eliminate it. Right now, we are the current methods available are netting, and then just containing it at each of the sites. And so our surveillance team out there are doing an amazing job. We've equipped them with side-by-sides, four-wheelers to go into crazy terrains to try to identify if the thing is moving. And yes, it's moving, but because of the vigilance of our team out there, it's not moving as fast as it potentially could. So we're still trying to figure out other methods to try to eliminate it, but at this moment, it's containment.
So there's no need for another layer or random on any moving vessels into Ireland, right? Not at that level yet. Is that what you're saying?
That would depend on the type of material that we're considering. If it were up to me for big things like break bulks or containers with soil and those kind of things, I would recommend 100% fumigation before departure at the where it's coming from.
Sure.
And some certification to speak to that, so that it adds that extra layer of protection for us. If it's not food item or those types of things, not consumable items, they should be 100% fumigated, because the list of invasives is very long.
Sure.
From fire ants to rhinoceros beetles to snakes and snails. So we gotta figure out some better ways to safeguarding ourselves rather than be dependent on who is bringing it in.
Sure. Which kind of snowballed into my next line of questions, Secretary. And first of all, thank you for and you making time also coming down to Tinian, because things are evolving really fast there. If I stand corrected, you guys know the regs, you guys know the laws more than the details of it, but there are some materials that are coming in for the construction, and although it is providing the much needed revenue, but there's also the concern of invasive species from wherever their point of origin is. So is there anything in the law right now that prohibits you from doing another layer of intervention with regards to materials coming in that are not from the CNMI? Primarily, I'll just call it quarry or aggregates. coming from high risk countries or nations or point of origin? Is there anything in the code that prohibits you from, you mentioned fumigating some of these prior to landing on the island, to avoid the fire ants, to avoid the spider, and all the other elements that we don't need here?
Thank you for that question. I'll have to go back and look at what the authorities given under the Secretary's office are in respect to, policies that would affect incoming things. And so this would mean we will require anybody from outside the CNMI to do this. And that would be on whoever is bringing things in. That would be an internal policy. I will have to consult with some legal folks. We currently have things on the books for quarantine and those types of things. And but as far as requiring fumigation, that's not something that is currently in play. And we can certainly take a look at that and see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, and I say this because again, things are evolving and in a rather quick pace. That all of us can agree that some of these are unusual. No, they're not. They don't happen in the last 5 years or whatever. So if there's anything in that aspect whereby it requires the legislature to act on the legislation, or it requires a call from the governor to do a directive based on his executive power, based on the law that has been provided under your authority, to further take that to the next step, because I think it's better that we do prevention than crisis management, so to speak, in that regards. And our island is very volatile. They're very small. They're not necessarily big, but when we have these kinds of occurrence, I think all of us here as a unit, not just the legislature or DNR, everyone, we have to chime in and come together. And number two is I made this openly, and I asked a question to DOD during the executive meeting with regards to the containment area for containers coming in. I know that Tinian's brown tree snake containment area or review area is fairly small for the amount of containers coming in. So I've made this ask, and I ask that you also advocate in that regards to work with CPA and see if we can have the entire first port of entry in terms of the containers, to have the entire port be sufficiently blockade for BTS. I think there's a need for us to escalate the process, because it only takes one hatchery or one hatch to demonstrate for it to spread, as indicative to what transpired in our neighboring islands. So I could not overemphasize the need for that, Secretary. I know that there was a directive a couple of years ago where they moved some of your employees quarantine section over to put it together with customs. I don't know what the elements of all the authorities, but I still think that a lot of the scientific side of things is still under your watch. And I stand corrected. So I just want to say that as a comment, and also ask for your support. Director Jack, can you walk us through with the way the distribution of federal funds, like what you mentioned earlier, as far as assistance to the agencies on both Lutad and Tinian? Let's say, for example, I ask you for materials that I can actually get on Rhoda or in Tinian. What's the procedure? What's the standard operating procedure? Can I just cut it down there and just run through the Munis portal or JDE and then get the materials, or do I have to go through the entire? Because I would think that this is a grant that's already a cash there up front, right? It's not something that you put in and then they'll give you a reserve reimbursement. That's correct.
Well, when we subgrant the money to a recipient, that recipient can do whatever he or she would like to do with it, provided that it's consistent with his or her proposal.
No,
As far as
Director,
buying
I'm talking
materials,
about I'm talking about the department, like the forestry grants that you have under
for
your
the-
watch. Let's say, for example, I need a net or I need a sprinkler for my nursery. Do I need to? What's the process as far as procuring?
with the exception of Tinian, because of their limited manpower, Rhoda was in a position back like 2 years ago, I think. That was the procedure. That was the process. They wanted something, they asked us, and we cut it for them.
You have to cut it.
Yeah,
Can they just do it down there?
Well, that was then. Now it's different. They're doing it now by themselves,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's good. So
Because as far as and I'm sorry to keep interjecting, but okay, go ahead.
yeah, so we still have some bumps here and there as far as procurement, but they have the capability to do it themselves. Sometimes we help them out even now to procure something for them, especially when it comes to hiring. It's, I guess, easier for us to do it here than for them to do it down there, because everything goes through finance up here.
Understood. Yeah, and I think primarily, directors just the efficiency, in the procuring of materials. That's I understand with the FTE and all that for the process when it goes through the proper motion, but I'm talking about like the tangible needs, the day-to-day needs or the weekly needs. If there's any, like for fuel, for example, does it have, do you have to be the one to cut it for them, or can they just?
They can cut. They should be the one to cut it, but let's not forget we're using a system now that everybody has a connection to it.
Sure.
When an item is prepared, say on Rhoda, and it has to do with the funds from our office, we would have to go in and approve it.
So you don't particularly trust the discretion of the resident director?
No, it's not that. It's the way the system is structured. We bring in the money. We're not what do you call that? We're not. Our responsibility doesn't end when we give you the funds. We're still connected to the funds as far as the system. The system is concerned. We still have to approve the requisition on munis.
Okay.
As it goes up the chain, all the way up to, after me would be the secretary.
Okay.
Because
the reason why I asked, Mr. Director, the reason why I asked is, I guess the efficiency of trying to. Let me give you an example. We used to have impress fund, so that if the power bill is only $300, the mayors of that respective territory can just actually cut and pay CUC so that they don't go dark. So things are different now, and sometimes a $300 tag on the power bill takes 3 months. So that's not very efficient in terms of the services to the public. So that's kind of like where I'm trying to get to, is how can we make it more seamless so the department needs is taken care of right away. And it's the same concept as doing it here too. It's just that you're here in Saipan, but I'm just more focused on the other two islands where you can't drive to Capitol Hill when you're in Rhoda or on Tinian. You have to call Director Jack. So but I guess it's just that concept, just mindset or the context of trying to get it as efficient and as as written by the grant, for compliance.
yeah, it's something that I think everybody is trying to work on to make the system efficient. But for now, it's not just us that could be held responsible for the delay of whatever is needed on these two islands, including at our own office. There are other people who has a say on what kind of account you should charge, what kind of items, and these are all the things that adds up to the
Okay, thank you.
inefficiency of the system.
Thank you, Director. And that's why I'm glad that OMB is here, and of course Finance. I don't know if she's here, so because they're the ones really managing it. No? But thank you, Director. Appreciate it. Maybe Secretary wants to.
Yes, if I may, thank you very much for that question. I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, but in the times that I've taken on management positions in this government, I've been audited. I was in the middle of audits when I first assumed as Director of Fish and Wildlife, and then now as Secretary of the department. We had our 5-year reviews, and we have a responsibility to maintain internal controls. And so, if we are the grantee, it only makes sense to me to have, if it's at agriculture, for them to have visibility, because I'm thorough, and when I'm asked questions like you're asking, what is going on with this, I will dial that, and he better have the answers. Where is this money? What was it used for? And things like that. And we have to make sure that our documents are in order for these things, because when we get audited and they question, that means we might have to pay it back with local funds that we scarcely don't have, right? And so we're trying to implement some internal controls that and using communication and the current technology to make things a little bit more seamless. But that is something that I'm also implementing, that if we are receiving these grants, then we should have visibility and be able to answer quickly when folks are asking. And I've had some not so positive experiences when I stepped in and I'm asking questions, and folks are like, I don't know, where is this person that's supposed to be on payroll? I'm not sure. Who's signing the leave? I'm not sure. So we're fixing things, and hopefully things will be faster and more expedient in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, Director. And I think this is the beauty of this budget hearing, because it actually asks operative questions. So, but I don't want to belabor any more than where I'm at today. I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make an update to Senator Paul's question with regard to the tractor. Got a message from BECQ. The contract for a tractor is being routed for final signature at procurement today. The previous DARA grant project will be replacing the old Holland tractor with a Tier 4 65 horsepower John Deere tractor, for your information, sir. For Rhoda, yes.
And just a little bit more on that. When we came in, folks had already ordered this tractor with the promise of using ARPA funds to pay for it. The tractor's been sitting in the warehouse, and we had no ARPA funds. And so we had to try to figure out how to make it happen. And it just so happened that folks from DEQ were talking about the one-to-one exchanges. And our tractor here, one of our tractors, the old ones, qualified for that, and we're able to jump in on it. And zero obligation to the CNMI. We're going to get a tractor from BCQ federally funded. Thank you.
I know we're still stuck with this one division, but we'll try to wrap it up before we are listening to the rest of the division. I just want to do a follow-up on Senator Jude's line of questions in regards to expending these funds. For example, one of the grant here that you've listed, you're requesting for an extension. I mean, why are we continuing? And it's not just with your division, but even with OGM, where there seems to be this habit of extending these grants. Why aren't we spending it fast enough? And so what issues are you facing as to not getting these grants expended right before the deadline?
Uh, there are several factors in the extension of the SAP awards. One of them has to do with the limited or no items that you want to purchase on island. You have to order from out there, and so that adds to the delay. The other one, like I was mentioning earlier, is the system itself. There's just so many layers of bureaucracy, if you will, that delays the procurement of items that you want to purchase. And so all these factors, if you take them into consideration, justifies the need to request for extension. And the grantor is usually very understandable and cooperative to allow you such requests. Besides, the grant is usually good for 3 years. And so we need to work in that time period. And if it warrants that you need additional time and your justification is good, the grantor would most likely approve it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, this is where we like to hear whether it's a finance issue, a procurement issue, and in terms of that process, or whether it's truly something that is really unattainable in terms of the supplies being here in the CNMI or elsewhere. But I mean, this is a $75,000 grant, whereas already a portion is for FTE. So we only talk about a small portion of the funds, but even just a small portion we can't spend within the time that it was awarded for. I see that you have 3 vacant IST positions on Tinian. Are we having are we challenged with interested applicants, or is this are these new positions?
What program are we?
Invasive species.
Thank you for that question. So what the grant funding is for one FTE, and another grant funds 2. We are currently doing onboarding to fill that one position, which was awarded earlier. The lateral grant, we just are in the midst of clearing acquiring NEPA clearance to be able to use the grants, which would fund the 2 FTEs for Tinian.
Okay. But even with that one position, you're able to fill that? There are interested applicants?
Thank you for that question. We did have to announce several times in Tinian because we had no applicants, our first announcement. And then we actually, during our recent visit to Tinian, we were able to make connections with the community and our partners at Customs and Biosecurity to gain some traction and interest for that position. So we are doing onboarding for that position right now.
Good to hear. Are you able to use some of these, like if you're unable to find the interested applicants, to partially fund some of the current employees of DLNR and kind of do like a shared or like a cost sharing with their salary, and that they'll provide, let's just say 50% of their focus on the grant side of things, and then the other 50% on the local side of things?
That's a great question, and we are currently exploring some of those things, and I take some responsibility in some of the extensions that we've sent out, because it's a pretty big department, and I'm trying to go between the divisions to see what's happening and offer new ways of doing business. And one of them is that where you take current locally funded folks and have them charge the federal grant, so that while we're trying to fill it, someone is already doing the job. And yes, that is something that we can do and we have been doing. And it's an interesting concept to also our grantors, because they are in favor of expending all of these monies as soon as possible, and we're trying to make sure that we get the job moving on the project. So and we've always had a challenge with our recruiting process. And so we're also employing and making lots of friends at OPM in the ways that we're trying to recruit folks, employing new innovative ways, challenging the system, but in the spirit of trying to get the job done, right? We asked for the money. We said we're going to be able to do it between this time and this time. And the recruiting process sometimes takes up to a year, and that's already a year in the life of that grant. That's at the end of it. And so we're employing other methods in there, and with the help of OPM to get us in there, we've been semi-successful. And I say that because we haven't touched all the different programs yet, but we're working on that.
Thank you. And I just wanted to bring it up because last year around this time, it was expressed by the administration that they're trying to get departments to shift some of their employees to be partially federally funded, so that even that could free up some local money to address other things within your department. Which brings me to the Cagman water bill. If that is solely within your authority to increase fees, and this was something that was also brought up on Rhoda in terms of increasing permits and licenses, has that been studied and maybe something that you've already begun to amend your regulations to increase some of these fees to meet the cost that's associated with these services?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the answer is yes. We are in the final stages of updating the Cagman watershed, Cagman farm plot, with recommendations to increase fees and things like that. And we're partnered with the mayor's office, NRCS, NMC Crease, the division, even commerce, to try to make this make a little bit more sense, because what used to be has not been working. And so we're trying to get a better system in place to not only address the current issues with, say, power, utility, and water use, but also the success rate for the farmers and their products. Thank you.
Okay. And one last one. Can I get an update on the micro grant food security program?
Yeah, for the FY23 award. That award the deadline for that award was July 30th. For the first time in the history of this program, we received over 300 applications, and till now we're still kind of like we've already sorted them out, and we've made copies, and we're getting ready to have our review committee review them, so that we can start issuing awards. Out of the 300 some applications, with only $224,000, that's like about 48 grantees that will benefit from this award, or from this FY23 award. We just received also our FY24 award, and that one will be announced maybe next month, so people can also apply. To date, since we haven't distributed any funds under the 23 award, from FY20 to FY22 awards, we've given close to about 40 applicants here in the CNMI on all three islands. And under this program, the max a person can receive is $5,000. And so we're encouraging people to apply for the whole amount and not 2,500 or 4,000. Apply for the entire amount. That's what we've been asking them, and most of them are doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think the one you mentioned, you said for fiscal year 23, I thought the deadline was actually in May. And so it's been over 2 months since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just a matter of going through these applications and
it's very cumbersome. They submitted their application online, and what we do is we make sure that there's no duplicate. We make sure that they are sort of like in alphabetical, kind of develop a system to make it easier for us to track. Because sometimes one applicant, sometimes a person would help 5 applicants. And so it's gonna, and the applicant's name will not be on the file that you receive. It will be somebody's name, but when you open that somebody's name, you see 5 applications, and so that also another issue that we have to deal with to ensure that everybody is accounted for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, it's been over 2 months and we haven't, gotten any. Some of the applicants are reaching out because they haven't gotten any response as to whether they've been approved or not, and so they're just waiting on any. And our goal here is to also try to expand some of these monies because, like right now, we've been cut 2%, and could that have been solved by some of these grant monies going out and paying vendors? That's some of the things that we're trying to see how we can better expend these monies quickly so that it could be realized in the current year and then worry about next fiscal year as it comes. But I have a few more, but I'll ask it at the very end. I know the vice chair would like to ask something, and so I'll go on and recognize the vice chair. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I might add that we did write all these applicants and inform them about the delay and to be patient as we sort things out.
Okay.
And also the good thing about it too is that now the grantor agency has allowed us to use whatever remains of our FY21 awards and FY22 awards together with the money we receive under FY23 to give out to these 300 some applicants.
Okay, and so see, that's another, I don't know, maybe that's an area of concern when we have these balances from previous years when it could have been expended back then. So I don't know what the issue is now, but yeah.
There were fewer applicants during the past 2 years.
Yeah, thank you. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to you, Secretary, and to your directors. I just have a follow-up question on the microgrant. So I'm hearing that there's some remaining balances from FY21 and 22. Would you happen to have those amounts?
Let me see if I have. Just like 17. One is 17,000.
For FY21?
Or maybe this is FY21. No, FY21. I think so.
So 117,000 still remains? Okay, and what about for FY?
No, 17,000.
Oh, 17,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
17,000.
17,000. And then for FY22?
FY22. Uh, I'm not I'm not sure whether this is correct, but it's showing 94,000.
Okay. 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 And then for FY24, 224,000 was awarded, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Or sorry, it was FY23 was 224. For FY24, how much was awarded?
About the same amount.
About the same amount. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I know that you said that there's over 300 applicants for the here in FY23. What is the what are the guidelines for allocation as far as how much each applicant can expect to receive? Is it what are the guidelines that agriculture is using to determine who gets the grant and how much? So there has to be some kind of criteria, right? That like you have a spending plan of how you wish to allocate the grant.
Yeah, well, each applicant is entitled to receive up to $5,000.
Up to five. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the threshold for each applicant.
Right. Per application, per year, yeah.
Okay, can
Well,
an
yeah.
applicant submit more than one application for different needs?
One applicant can is eligible to get to apply for another is eligible to apply for additional funds to implement another project.
So there.
So like in your case, you can apply for funds for 2 projects.
Okay.
So, and each project can be up to 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because the funding is so limited and you have like a lot of applicants, is there a guideline or criteria that agriculture is going to use to ensure that the whatever fundings that we have to assist is equitable to the people who are applying?
Yes, we have a guideline to use.
Okay.
Yeah, and but before we get into the guideline, we make sure first that they do have submit a complete
Sure.
application.
So the application
Yeah,
is
if
complete.
the figures don't add up, especially with
Okay.
so many applications, toss them away,
Okay.
put them aside, and just worked on the good ones. That was our problem before.
Mm-hmm.
We went out of our way to help everybody,
Okay.
even calling them up to make sure that their figures add up, or change their figure, or change that and stuff like that. We even
So is
help
there a number
Logan.
of applications that's limited to an applicant?
Pardon?
Is there a number of application that is limited per applicant? So let's say an applicant has 5 projects, right?
Uh-huh.
Very ambitious, submitted and a completed application with all the required documents. What is the processing?
Yeah, it has to be also reasonable and feasible. I mean,
Okay.
a person cannot. You don't expect a person to be successful in implementing a lot of projects
Right, but
versus one project.
right.
So
So
it's
the
kinda-
threshold is 5,000, right? And I'm just saying, like, if
Yeah.
there are over 300 applicants and there's only 224,000 to go around, are we making sure that all 300 applicants have applications have been reviewed? Just hypothetically, let's say that every single one of them have submitted their applications completely and with all the supporting documents that you have asked. We want to make sure that for, let's say a person that submitted 2 applications because they have 2 projects versus, one, that I just kind of want to make sure that
It's fair.
everyone gets a fair chance to receive the grant the first round, right? And then if they have an additional project that they applied for, then it's to be considered. But I guess I just want to make sure that everyone is treated equally,
Yeah.
like first round, and then maybe if there's still funding left, then consider for the second project is where I'm going with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So.
I think I
Okay.
understand where you're coming
Okay,
from. Yeah.
okay. And then So I'm just gonna dive right into the budget under agriculture, right? So the budget request for FTEs is 18, total of 18, and the governor's proposal is at 18. Um, the total personnel cost is 589,000, a little bit over 589,000 is what you submitted, and the governor's proposal is 513,000, which is a shortfall of about well, you have a shortfall there. Do you know what impact that would have on your? Is it because of the reduced hours? Is that what is your budget request based on full time, like 80 hours under personnel?
I think so. Our request is based on 80 hours, right? Or,
It'll have to do with the reduced hours and the unfilled positions. that
Okay,
were-
so the variance is attributed to the decrease in hours and the unfilled. Okay, and I see that on your presentation you have 4 revolving accounts under agriculture, right? And you did provide the funds balance as of August, which is great. Thank you so much for providing us those details. And since you are zero funded for your operations, I'm assuming that the revolving funds will be used to for your operations, right?
Right.
So your total operations came out to about 94,000, but you only have 50,000 in your revolving total. The total for the 4 accounts come up to about $50,000. So therefore, you still have a shortfall of about $44,000. Um, that's just a note. But you are requesting 40,000 for professional services. Can you provide us a breakdown of what the 40,000 is for
professional.
under agriculture, right? Under professional services, you requested $40,000.
I believe that would have gone to supporting the contract for the part-time veterinarian that we have a contract with right now.
How much is the contract?
36.
36. So is that what was so when the budget was being put together, is that the assumption that it's for the professional service of 40K is for the vet?
Maybe that's the
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then there's a request of 20,000 for repairs and maintenance. Can you provide us what the breakdown is for the 20,000?
Or maybe that's for the machinery, tractors.
How many tractors?
We have 2.
You have 2 tractors. Oh, you did say that you have 2 tractors that are not in operation right now,
Right.
right? And do you have quotations of how much the repairs would be for those 2 tractors? Like, how did you come up with 20,000?
Check an estimate of what we've been spending in the past.
Okay, so you do have
Yeah.
a basis for your.
Right.
Okay. And then you have personnel and training costs. Personal training costs of $5,000. Can you share with us what those training costs are?
That's for staff development.
Staff development. And would those training be here on island or off island?
Most likely it'll be here on island.
Okay. And
Um,
so will you be bringing someone in to train, or are you gonna utilize like businesses on island that will provide the training?
utilize our own local resources.
Okay, so
It's in the low end because we do have money from the federal funds that we've been receiving for training.
training?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
and under the federal funds, the amount is higher than the 5,000.
And is this for all 18 staff under your division, or just administrative staff or
For
for training?
uh,
I mean, do you already have plans on who's going to be receiving training in FY25?
for all of them,
Oh, for all of them.
for all of them.
And these are for staff development training.
Right.
Okay. And then you have licenses and fees for $1,000.
Licenses and fees for $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us what types
the,
of licenses?
The fees. We are members of the U.S. Forest Service,
Okay.
and we have fees that we pay every year.
Okay.
to
How much is
maintain-
the fee? How much is the membership fee?
It's like we have two, one 500 and another one another 500.
Okay. And is
So-
the membership fee covering all your staff or just like one access?
Just
for-
one, just one.
Okay.
But not staff. This is for the CNMI to be a member of this forestry organization.
Okay. Okay. Understood. All right. And then we have so no travel expenses planned for 2025. You aren't planning to visit Tinian and Rhoda to meet with your counterparts and
We have money for travel to these islands and also beyond these islands or outside the Commonwealth, and we'll be using federal funds.
okay. So no local funds would be used. Okay.
Yeah.
And then 20,000 for your fuel and lubricant.
Yeah, that's again based on our current use, and
What's your average
we'll also be
monthly for your fuel?
oh yes.
How much do you spend a month on your fuel?
Maybe so one drum can, 150 drum can for the diesel itself, and we use it for about a month.
Okay.
That's $500, close to $400.
Okay.
Just that one drum can, and then for
The diesel is used for what?
tractor.
For the tractor.
Yeah.
But you have 2 tractors right now that are
Right.
not in operation. Okay.
And so we usually use finish it up in a month. So
Okay.
that's about 500, and then the rest will be. So I would say about maybe plus and minus 1,000.
So how many
Including
vehicles do
the
you have in your
vehicles.
fleet?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 or 7, I think.
You have 7 vehicles.
Oh, 7.
7. Okay, so you have 7 vehicles in your fleet, and so you're spending about $1,000 a month, including the shit. What is that called? The one that you said earlier. So you're spending about $1,000 a month on all your fleet on
think so.
fuel. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. I think that's all I have, Chair. But I just wanted to share with you that during our budget hearing on Rhoda and Tinian, some of the concerns that were shared with us was that under agriculture, like they do have like a vehicle or two to use, or even a tractor, but the challenges that they've been having is funding for fuel, and so that really limits their ability to go out and perform the necessary duties and responsibilities under their division. So I don't know if you guys are aware of those challenges that both municipalities are facing every day. So they normally would go and ask the mayor for assistance, but is that something that the main, like your office secretary can look into and see how you can better assist them so that they can go out and do what they need to do? Yeah. Okay. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice. At this time, I know members have several questions under this division, but we'll go and proceed to the next one, and then at the end we can do some follow up. Thank you.
Okay, Division of Fish and Wildlife. We all know, fish and game, hunting, researches, safeguarding our natural resources, our fish and game for future generations is their mandate. Here is the impact, locally funded. As you can see there, it's a huge division. There are about 80 some staff under the Division of Fish and Wildlife spread across Saipan, Tinian, and Rota. 14 of those are locally funded, to include the Director of Fish and Wildlife that is currently vacant. And because of the current austerity measures, another way that I'm trying to be creative in cost savings is not filling the director's position and using the whatever that funds that position to augment the enforcement folks' salary so that they can be at 100%. The equipment listed below is what our enforcement officers use, but they are all federally funded. And so on the budget, the impact for Division of Fish and Wildlife is limited to just the director and the enforcement officers' positions. So the different sections under the division are listed here. I couldn't tell you how many. We probably could have, but this is where the 70 plus employees are all under. We have the fisheries, data, wildlife, outreach, and education, aquatic ed, Smiling Cove Marina, which operates the boating access funds, enforcement, coordination, BTS. Each of these sections have multiple federal grants under them. Division of Fish and Wildlife operates millions of dollars in federal grants. And it's a pretty huge undertaking, and then we have a bunch of amazing people executing the work. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the federally funded programs. They're self-sufficient. There are some challenges there on the expenditures, timely expenditures of said funds, turnover of staffing, and things like that. But I wanted to focus a little bit on the current crisis that we're faced with right now. So the the enforcement section under the Division of Fish and Wildlife is the only locally funded section. We are trying our best to augment it with federal funds, but it's a timing situation where the grants that we apply for to support these positions, they may begin, because they're competitive, they may begin in October. And what has happened in our budget is we had recruited 6 folks, 6 new officers back in earlier in the year. So we have 6 folks, including the section supervisor, who are on board. Right now we have about 11 officers, And since the new management has taken over and new team has been in place, lots of amazing things have been happening at the division's enforcement section. Obviously, it has a lot of, it covers a wide range of, uh, or its responsibilities are wide range, um, to include participating in search and rescues and enforcing MPA laws, mandated to be the lead on coral reef issues, hunting and fishing licenses and things like that, and mandatory data reporting. These all fall under the division's enforcement section and the data. But since we've included these new folks into the section, uh, only positive things have been coming out, and we want to maintain that momentum moving forward. Our current worry right now is that because the submission of the budget did not include the newly recruited folks, we're looking at sending them packing come end of September. And so in the beginning, I had asked that we do support the administration submission. However, if for some miracle you guys start catching money raining down from the sky, this is one of our big asks, is to fund the enforcement section. And I believe we have the impact sheet that we will share with everybody, um, in case something becomes available. So we've seen an increase in permit registrations, increase in the presence. Obviously, when you're out there and you're engaging with the community, uh, that in itself is public education and outreach. Uh, they've been very engaging with our vendors to ensure that uh, the permitting, I mean the data sharing is up to date. We've been collaborating with other agencies, in environmental and regular and law enforcers to enforce all the policies out there. Um, and yeah, so that is our big ask for the Division of Fish and Wildlife. I know that we're running short on time, but we're sending out the impact sheet so that it's at your ready reference. Again, here is uh, we're looking at 7 staff. Whatever is available, we'll try to augment it with other ways, but that is what we are looking at.
How many of those positions are currently filled?
So of the 14 federal locally
No.
funded positions, to include the director, we have everything but 2 positions filled right now. But come end of September, we will be losing 7 positions, and not including the director.
7 conservation officers.
Correct.
Can you reallocate the salary for the director to cover partial?
That's what we're doing right now. For the austerity shortage, we're using the director's salary to augment the shortage due to austerity. Because right now they're all they're all funded at 87.5, and so we're spreading the director's salary through the 6 current.
So in the current fiscal year, they're funded at least 78 hours. Is that correct? So what do you mean by using the director's salary to augment?
Good morning, Senator.
Hi.
What we are doing is using the lapse funding from the director's salary to support processing the onboarding for the 6 conservation officers.
Okay. So seeing as how the proposed budget provides for a salary for the director, how many can that salary cover? How many positions can that salary cover? And so we would have to seek
Barely
funding.
2
Um,
with fringe benefits.
okay. And so if it's able to cover 2, then we're kind of just looking for 4 more, if that's
Right.
what I'm understanding.
Correct.
Correct, but we're also hoping that the salary for the director is also included in the next budget. This is currently a band-aid approach. I'm using federally funded folks to act as the acting director. Hopefully, that position is also fully funded so that we can get somebody more permanent on board to manage all of this big division. Thank you.
In the current year, in the current budget, it was proposed that 50% will be covered locally. So where was the other 50% going to come from? Under the current year's budget.
We're using our revolving funds to cover the remaining.
Okay.
Chair, just clarifying question. 7 or 6? On the spreadsheet you gave, it's showing 7. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There are
5,
6
7.
currently.
Conservation 1.
Right. Yeah, 6 of the new folks are in. 1 is currently vacant. We're trying to so a total of 7.
So a total of 7 in
positions.
terms of requesting for funding.
Yes.
So, and then the chair asked about 71. The director position is roughly about 71,000. So the difference of that is roughly about 192 to cover for
For all of the FTEs?
for the 7. So we're talking about 7, right? So you said barely 2 positions at the director's salary to offset the lapses, right? You're covering some of the personnel. But if we take the director's salary at 71,000, the difference would be 192,000 to cover the 7 conservation 1 officers. Is that correct?
I believe the director's salary is not budgeted at 100% in the FY25, but we would use that to cover as much as we can for the conservation officers. And then we would use our revolving funds to make up the difference.
Okay, so I see at the 87.5%, that's 61,000. So roughly a $10,000 difference in salary. That translate to the same as the conservation officers. Okay, just wanted to clarify. So it's 7 in total.
Yes, please.
Sorry, just one more clarification. How were you able to get 6 officers? Isn't the prerequisite like someone who served X amount of years as a specialist or as a trainee or something like that?
This is part of the reason why I said earlier that I'm making lots of friends at OPM. So knowing what our needs are, right? And knowing what the requirements are, we went out ahead of, as we're going to advertise the position, we went ahead and start looking at folks who fill that requirement so that we can put them on as provisional. And then the same folks will compete during the recruitment process as OPM is going through the classification. If they make the cut, great. If they don't, thank you. But, as a way to get people on board, the warm bodies to start doing the work, we were applying the provisional emergency hires, but ensuring that these folks, even though provisional, meet the minimum requirements, which all of them are, they've graduated from the academy. Some are veterans, and they all meet the at least 6 years worth of experience in law enforcement. So we're a combination.
So it's emergency hire. That's the term, and it's authorized under OPM.
Yes.
Yep. And then the hiring them on board, just to further elaborate on that, hiring them and allowing them to gain that experience will actually make them more competitive when the time opens up, or when the time comes for you to open up those positions. It allows them to be more, to get an edge, to at least be able to be kind of a priority in terms of hiring them, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And I just wanted to clarify
but
that, because
yeah,
from your statement, it sounds like you hire them under emergency hire, and then when you open this position and others apply, all that training that that they undertook might just be not even, they might not be able to use it, and you might have to hire somebody else who's more qualified. But what I was trying to clarify is that allowing them to hire them under this emergency would allow them to be more competitive when the time comes to open that position and for them to be hired. Is that correct?
That is an interesting way of looking at it, and yes, you can see it that way. However, it is a department need that we're trying to meet.
Which justifies the emergency hire.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, before I recognize Senator Jude, and just to continue on with the line of questions, when were these positions filled? Was it just in the current year? I mean, when you had since October to try to address this issue? Because if they had been in the system already, they'd be budgeted for next fiscal year. So what's the delay there? And then all of a sudden we're hearing this emergency hire.
Yes, there was some delay in processing. We attempted to meet the OMB's timeline. We did meet the timeline. However, there were some delays at OPM that made it so the documents did not reach OMB before they submitted the budget request that zeroed out. But they were budgeted for in the 23 budget, and we didn't. Although we technically did meet the timeline, it did not get to the OMB's desk before they submitted the new budget that zeroed them out.
So all those 6 are on a probationary period right now?
Provisional.
Or provisional period? Okay.
And I believe it was April that we submitted. They were brought
Right
on board.
around the time budget was being.
Yeah.
Okay. Senator Jude?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just sticking with the same division, Secretary. So can we elaborate more on the creative funding mechanism, reference to what the gentle lady just said about the revolving fund, and how are we managing to do that? To what extent that and if that is sustainable practice for as far as budgetary is concerned? No, so right now and I appreciate the information provided earlier that sometimes when we submit RFPAs and it's coming down towards the end of the fiscal year, there's a potentially occurrence that if it doesn't meet or if it doesn't make it to the legislature passing that budget, it may trigger a release of that person. So that's something that we don't want to happen. But can you just elaborate more on that, please? Or anybody?
How we've approached this is we've slow walked the announcement for the director position to be able to use the lapse funding to cover the FTEs. We're also using we have 2 revolving funds under the division. One is for the license and fees revenue that's generated just from the sale on Saipan, and also our transient dock revenue for transfers out to Maniagaha. And in addition to that, we also were able to secure one federal project where we partner with the NOAA law enforcement, and where our enforcement officers will help carry out functions for the NOAA law enforcement because they don't have a presence here. And so we use some of that funding to also augment so that we can stretch the local dollars. And it's our hope that we'll have enough to at least onboard them. And then come October, we're hoping that we will be able to get these FTEs funded, at least partially, so that we can continue to use the revolving funds and federal funds.
Just typically of the legislature, and I can say this, that we put $1 sometimes in front of an FTE during the budget cycle so that we can trigger that to make it effective. So that's kind of like what you're getting at, right? As far as that's concerned. Aside and separate from general fund, federal fund, revolving fund. Okay. So just sticking with the revolving fund, and I know the secretary, you mentioned earlier that what's being represented on document right now may not be necessarily accurate, simply because of the way the government is. So can you elaborate more on that? Because I'll just say this, that in May 2023, the Secretary of Finance and OMB came up with and I'll read it out in verbatim. Let me see if I can have my documents here. Okay. In May 31st, 2023, okay. Let me just focus on Rhoda and Tinian for that matter. Yeah, there's a public law 20-44 that created this fish and game revolving account. Is that accurate?
I believe that is the public law.
Okay, so in May 31st, 2023, for the first senatorial district, there's $1,014,102.35 fund status. Section Business Unit 6047. As of April 1st, 2024, $481. Okay. For second senatorial district, same account, 6046. On May 31st, 2023, there's $116,556.40. As of April 2024, it's $165. So for the purpose of this meeting today, can we explain this? We have a OMB here, maybe can help us understand this further. Because if we say that this was created by Public Law 20-44 on page 7 of the law, line 7 specifically, and I read in verbatim, the second expenditure authority. The expenditure authority over the revolving fund is vested in the Secretary of DLNR with the concurrence of the Director of Fish and Wildlife for Saipan sub-account, the resident directors for DLNR Rhoda and Tinian respectively for Rhoda and Tinian sub-accounts, provided that the funds herein shall expended pursuant to a spending plan approved by the Secretary for each senatorial district, including hiring of a full-time employee to enforce provision of this article. So just moving on down to the law. So whatever the conservation area management revolving fund is, 15% shall go to Rhoda, 15% shall go to Tinian, and the 70% is for Saipan Conservation Area. And moving further along, this one includes enforcement, conservation, research activities, purchase of equipments for supplies, building and training for enforcement for the MPAs, hiring of personnel, salary and fringe benefit for existing division employees, performing enforcement, conservation, and research activity. And you can use it for match for competitive grants and so forth. Emphasis added. So I just wanted to point out that, Secretary and ma'am, with the creation of this. So because during the course of the budget hearings, we run into requests both from Rhoda and Tinian that they needed vehicles for enforcement. They needed fuel, and likewise, and of course everything else that is referenced on the revolving fund. So can I just get some guidance from you?
One of the actions that we're taking right now is to work with Rhoda and Tinian to not only increase hunting and fishing fees so they can generate more revenue, but work out a system so that we can communicate more routinely regarding a spending plan so that we can make sure that we don't find ourselves in a finding of diversion of these funds. Even though this is local revenue, it's considered a federal fund because it's what we use to make ourselves eligible to receive federal funds under the U.S. Sport Fish Restoration and Wildlife Restoration Funds. Right now, the system is that Rhoda and Tinian themselves access the accounts. We don't have access to it. But that is a concern that we're working on, where we have to pull it back under the Saipan office so that we can at least demonstrate that we have an accounting of it and that we're reviewing spend plans and that we're communicating with the different resident directors.
But ma'am, respectfully, this is under your watch.
It is, and the way that the law was established, it's supposed to be under Saipan's office, but when they created the accounts, at least for the last 5-6 years, it's been directly managed by Rhoda and Tinian. In fact, I think Representative.
So okay, I want to just, and forgive my ignorance. I mean, I'm just trying to get an understanding because this is a substantial amount of money, $1 million to spend in less than 1 year. You went 1 million and now it's $481. So how can we just get a guidance as far as that?
So I'm not sure what reports you're looking at, but I do believe that Representative Ogo approached us about that, and we did look into it, and it was determined that that's actually not the revolving fund for Fish and Game. It was actually an agriculture fund. So we couldn't get in there to audit it, but we did also respond to Secretary, who forwarded it on to the Rhoda delegation when that was raised.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may ask that.
Yeah, I
Or
think
in
she
these
was
years, maybe they can
wanted to be
provide more
acknowledged.
And I appreciate the conversation because this one is, everything is pretty, created by 2044, and then to have this before us, and we're just trying to make sure that we connect the dots. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Senator, to answer your question, because this is an account that was established prior legislature, it was established in the old, the prior system. So the transition to the new system, we all understand that, we've encountered a lot of discrepancies and different numbers. So I want to say that a fund certification requested to the Secretary of Finance would resolve this, the amount that's in the account. And a fund certification would go back to when the account has been established and all the expenses made since.
Yeah, and thank you for and thank you for clarifying that, no, Ms. Camacho, right? Yeah. And by the way, welcome to the legislature. The reason why I asked this because I actually personally inquired to the secretary earlier this year, Sec. Then just hearing what he said earlier is kind of concerning from us on this side. We're trying to help the agency facilitate in this case, Fish and Wildlife. But I appreciate the response, but can you qualify more? Can you go a step further as to what do you mean by this? This documents came from the executive branch. It's not derived from the legislature. So all these fund status is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. It's from submission from the executive branch. So how is it that we're representing these numbers, and now you're saying that it's not a representative of what really is? Because $1 million is a lot of money again. And furthermore, the 100-some thousand and change is substantial. And the reason why we're asking, because the law says that the Secretary and the Department of Lands and Natural Resources of the RDH, they can actually work together to attend some of the needs down there. on Tinian and Saipan. I mean, on Rhoda. And when they see these things and they cannot access it and they're just trying to conform with the mandate of 2044, it's troubling, no, for them. And then it comes to us. And then now we're here to ask this kind of questions. So can you guide us through more, like, so that hopefully the RDHs are listening on this?
I believe too, it should be a request on the workflow to the
What is that?
workflow in the system. So it should follow how the law was established.
Okay, so can you be able to comfortably say before this Senate,
Mhm.
where did these monies go? How were they expended?
I can't
You
say.
cannot?
But
But you're managing it.
OMB only does allocation. As far as expenses, it should go to the Department of Finance.
Is finance here?
No.
No? Okay, so, and,
But I'm aware that if a fund certification is requested, a detailed expense report
Sure.
should have followed through. So the last report should be the correct account,
Okay.
the correct numbers provided if that was a fund certification request.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jasmine. The reason why I keep repeating my question, because we have a phone number that is for the public and it's not functioning right now in Tinian. So when I call a landline, I need to call a cell phone. So just imagine the general public. So we really need to pin down this access of these funds and help these agencies, because it's really by law, it's theirs. At least an information that, especially to the respective mayors, that these numbers are wrong, and we need to work closely with regards to accessing this, because secretary is here to ask for monies to hire a wildlife director, and this can be the source. But if it's not reporting accurately, it's concerning for us here in the Senate, in the legislature. So how fast can we account for this? I mean, if you're saying that this is not accurate, then the balance right now is in May 2024 is not, then it's not accurate then.
I'm saying if that report comes from a requested fund certification and it comes from the Secretary of Finance, then that last report should be an accurate number.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay, thank you, Jess, and forgive our passion, because we're trying to get an understanding.
Yes.
Okay, go-
So just a follow up on Senator Jude. I know this is not the first time, but obviously when you get a listing showing balances, we're not into the exact number, but we're talking about ballpark figure, so that if it says a million sum, we expect it to be around there, because maybe you haven't updated the expenditure for the last 6 months, and that's okay, we understand. But maybe that listing that Senator Jude is talking about, Chair, maybe we should attach that in a letter from the committee, so that they can certify that listing, and we can have finally a certified listing, because as was mentioned by Senator Jude, we're trying to find resources to supplement concerns. As we see today, their budget, they ask for 3.5 million, but they only get 1.5. So I'm not saying we're gonna completely meet that, but some areas where there are serious concerns, we can try to supplement. Especially, as I mentioned earlier, Rhoda do not even have one working tractor, and they only need 11,000. So maybe we can use 11,000 from there, and also to get the mechanic and all that. So this presents us with opportunities to change and allow, if we need to amend the law. But I agree totally, and I say we should ask for a certification of that listing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Before I recognize, I know that we did submit a request for revolving fund balances. Unfortunately, they've been coming back with 2 accounts a week, or sometimes even 1 a week, and so they're going on a I guess, a case by case basis. But I did express this in previous hearings that with agencies that are unsure of their account balances to request a fund certification. But then this also goes back to my point with OMB is that once these accounts have been certified, will it be reflective in the like, for example, if fund certification was done today, would that new balance or that corrected balance be reflected in next year's um, special fund balance volume? Or I mean, are we going to experience this issue every year where you're reporting what was showing in JD and that it hasn't been reconciled?
So we are seeing a high volume of requested fund certification because when the Department of Finance completes the fund certification, the workflow comes through OMB to allocate the correct amount on that fund certification.
So it is being adjusted as these fund certifications
Are being requested. Yes.
Okay, so I recognize you and then the vice chair.
Just Secretary, and just out of curiosity, what's the timeline turnaround for you and when you request for an RFPA and actual? What's the return like? Is it typical of 30 days, 45 days? Say I'm applying.
general,
You applied. You announced for a job, then I applied, and then you pick me. How long does it take for me to say, okay, Jude, you got to report to work?
It varies. It depends on if it is an entry level position or if it's a professional division, from recruitment to making the offer or doing the interviews and then making the offer. There's been some that have gone as far as 8 months, but utilizing the professional, I can get that thing done in less than a month. And
Yeah. Thank you, Secretary. And I asked that so we can also get a better grip on where this thing is. How can we narrow that again? As what the chairman was saying earlier. The quicker that we expend these federal funds and all that, it turns around in the gross revenue tax.
yes,
Hopefully, right? And also, it also makes our services to the public more efficient if we board that employee in, because that's why you're asking for it, because you need it, right? So I respectfully ask that we continue working together and try to narrow that gap. And I think, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, another agency that we need to call in is OMB. OPM, and see where that how they factor in. Okay, I yield back. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you.
and, Ms.
Recognize
Jasmine.
vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm really concerned, like 8 months to fill a vacancy that has been announced. Like, do we understand what is the bottleneck of that delay?
that number is, in our experience, one of the worst, right?
Sure.
And it varies depending on
Right.
what.
But
it is.
even still, right? Like I
Right.
can understand if you're hiring for a specialized position and you are hiring someone from outside the country and they have a visa
Mhm.
issue, stuff like I can understand that timeline can be somewhat acceptable. But if we're hiring locally, what is causing the bottleneck?
I cannot answer that.
Okay.
All I know is I'm paying a lot of visits to my friend Director Pangilinan over there to shed light on some of these things that are concerning, and they've been very quick to helping us out.
Let's say in your experience with the 8 months, like when you follow up for an update on that particular position, what is the typical response? Still processing?
And it's not just OPM, mind you, right? It's the whole.
Okay, so this is why I'm asking.
Processing,
Like, we have to
right.
understand everyone that's involved in the process,
Mhm.
right? And there has to be an established timeline of how long, one area of the government should take, right? Like maybe 30 to 45 days is
Right.
reasonable, right? But even that is really long, right?
Yes.
So we just need to understand with all the stakeholders involved in the hiring process, like what is the the average time that it should take, provided that there are no, significant reasons why the delay is like 8 months is just too long. And this, we have to understand what is causing that, and we have to get to the bottom of it so we can fix it. So thank you for sharing that, because now we're gonna follow up with that.
I appreciate
Uh,
that. If I may, I know that this has been brought up at the cabinet level, and the governor is acutely aware of it and has assembled and called in several folks to try to figure out how to streamline this a little bit better than what it currently is.
Yes, because we heard the same issues and concerns in the other municipalities. So this is not isolated to just us here, right? But
Right.
it's just, it really hampers your operational plans by having all these vacant FTEs, on field. So we really need to get to the bottom of that. But thank you for that. Um, I have, okay. So going back to Senator Jute, I guess this question is towards OMB maybe. So he has a report that he says came from the executive branch, and it's showing whatever the funding balances are. You're saying that whatever, if a funding certification was to be submitted, that number should be the accurate number, and it's the number that we should go with. But shouldn't all the reports reflect the same numbers? Why does it have to be just the funding certification that we rely on, and not wherever he got the report from? I mean, everything should have been deriving out of finance, right? So if he got a report from wherever he got it from, it should be consistent with the balances that, let's say, OMB would have generated the report, or even Secretary of Finance herself. Shouldn't there be some consistency in the balances?
There are pretty much factors to having different numbers. There are different type of reports that you run in the system that will generate a different number. So that could be one issue. The other, and of course, the other issue is we need to understand that we had different administrations, two systems in the past 2 years that were now in, focusing on one. Also, we also need to understand that when we did the transition from JD Edwards to the Tyler Milnes, the special funds were transitioned into the project ledger report, project ledger in the Milnes system. Now we had moved those into the general fund ledger because it's local funds. So that also has a change in numbers,
But I'm just thinking high level, right? I mean, the numbers have to mirror each other, because they are pulling numbers from this. I would think they're pulling numbers from the same system, despite of what the parameters are.
Mhm.
It sounds like at the end of the day, we're looking at bottom line numbers. And if you run the report, regardless of what parameters you set in, if you're looking for an ending balance or a status balance, then it should be pulling from the same reporting system.
And I believe we're working on that
Okay.
with the case-to-case basis of the request of fund certifications.
Okay.
We are getting to that point where it would be the same number.
And then to the chairman's point about the actuals being reflected, right? So let's say the funding certification was done today, and then once that is certified, it then goes to OMB to now record whatever the
Adjustments.
adjustments are. But isn't that supposed to be just automatic and not wait until somebody does a funding certification request for OMB to reflect the actuals?
There is a high volume of special fund accounts, and we want to make sure that numbers are accurate when we do these fund certification.
So if a specific department just never asked for a funding certification, then their numbers would never really be reflected on OMB side. Because
I would think they would be, because these are case to case and it's on a daily. I think at the end, when we don't have these case to case requests anymore, we would fix all the accounts.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so at some point, then if there's a downtime,
Yes.
then your office
yeah.
would
All the accounts will be
reflect the
adjusted to,
adjustments.
yeah.
Okay, it's just it's kind of concerning that
Yes.
that numbers are being adjusted, only when there's a funding certification
Yeah.
done. But I'm sure that you guys are working towards that.
Yes, we
too.
are.
Okay.
Thank you.
While we're still on that topic, Jasmine, if we made a request to OMB for an updated special fund volume, are you able to weed out the ones that haven't been reconciled and just give us the ones that are more accurate and that we can rely on?
Thing that we would need to sit with the Department of Finance and go over all the special funds to see which funds are not fund certified.
Okay. All right.
But we can get that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jasmine, for that clarification. So just I'm looking at DLNR's revolving funds account balances as of May 31st of this year. And I just have a few that I would like to clarify. I'm not familiar with them. So there's a revolving fund for Saipan Upland Mitigation Bank, and there's $735,000 in that account as of May of this year. Can you just enlighten us on what that account is for?
Thank you for that question. That's Saipan Upland Mitigation Bank was created to provide a streamlined permitting process when it has endangered species on the property, specifically the nightingale reed warbler. So the mitigation bank is supposed to generate at the sale of each credit to generate an amount that is supposed to be self-sustaining to manage the property that was set aside in perpetuity for the endangered species. So that amount we cannot touch until, and in fact, that was going to be an ask that we were going to mention towards the end, assistance from the legislature to
Suspend.
allow a law that would allow MPLT to manage and invest that money for us
Okay.
to generate
Yeah.
the rate that will.
So where the source of funds? So is this like a new account that was just established?
No, that's
this-
been in the mitigation bank.
Yes.
That has been in existence since 15 years ago when I was
15 years,
director of
okay.
Fish and Wildlife.
So
yes.
so this is cumulative. This amount in here is cumulative from.
Yes,
when
the
it was-
original intent was for that money to go straight to MPLT so that they can start investing it. But that investing leg of it never got done, and it's just sat in an account at finance.
So if the intent was to do that, why would you need another legislation to actually carry that out?
Because we don't have the authority to tell MPLT what to do, and they have asked that they would like something like that that directs them to do this specific thing, just
see.
like they did for the DPL funds, like law that tells the
Okay.
MPLT do this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And,
Thank you for.
and we've been in contact, and they've given us some pointers on how to make things move
Okay.
forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's a very great idea. We have to be very resourceful these days on how to generate additional revenues. And
Yes.
this is quite a significant amount of money. So, and then there's an account for precinct 2 streetlights, and it has $25,000 in there. Like, can you explain what that is?
Yes, we are working with procurement and supply to see what can be done about that specific project. Yeah, it's under communication with procurement and supply.
But I'm trying to understand, what is the fundings like? Where did this money come from? Are you receiving or generating revenue from streetlights?
No, I think that isn't
Or-
that legislation.
Those are special, the Saipan local laws. So it came
so
from
this
the
is an
delegation.
appropriation.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And it in which the Secretary of DLNR is the expenditure
Okay.
authority.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Now I understand. And I would assume the same thing then for Sugar Duck Container Restroom? Okay, for 50,000. Okay. And then there's a Cagman Watershed project for $1.2 million. Is that also an appropriation or a federal grant, or what is this account
I think it
under
was
soil and water
I
conservation?
think it was an appropriation from the legislature
How long ago was that, and what is the purpose?
for matching purpose.
For matching purpose,
Yeah, with
for
the
like
for
grants that
two
we.
yeah federal for the federal funds that we uh, not received but earmarked for this project in the
Do you
tune of 2
know?
billion, I think.
Do you know when this was appropriated? And is there a sunset provision on this
I don't think
appropriation?
so. I don't think there's it has a sunset provision. It's it's there until we used it, I guess.
Okay.
And so right now the plans have not been done yet, so that's why we have
Do
not
you
been
recall
using
how
it.
long ago that appropriation was?
Maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
So 4 or 5 years, and we have not touched $1.2 million.
We have to wait for the plan to be done. It's out of our jurisdiction. NRCS is trying its very best to get it done.
Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you for that clarification. I just need a little bit more understanding on the FTEs under Fish and Wildlife. I believe it shows that there were 7 FTEs for vacant FTEs for Conservation Officer 1, but according to the reports that you guys have provided us, these vacant FTEs has been filled. They have been filled.
Correct. Under provisional hire.
Okay. And is there like a duration of the provision?
End of September is when is the
Okay.
last day.
I see. And then these temporary hires would be converted into permanent hires?
They will
Or-
be sent home because they are not budgeted for, and that's what the ask is.
Oh, the ask is to use the director's budget to.
No, it's a prayer for a miracle that you guys find some money somewhere out
Oh.
there.
Okay. Okay. Got it. All right.
And I don't know about that 1 million revolving fund. We won't be here asking if that
Okay.
was readily available to us.
Okay. Okay. And then I just one under your budget submission for 15,000 repair and maintenance. Can we get a breakdown of what that's for?
Is this under the Fish and Wildlife?
Yes.
We have several maintenance projects like the transient dock and also our enforcement vessel that we were hoping to get funded.
Okay. I think. Okay, that's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice. Can you explain what these 7 FTEs that are federally funded, what positions are these, and are they on on a similar boat as to the 7 conservation officers, and that they'll be let go after the grant runs out?
7? Which 7?
There's 7 FTEs that are expiring. Is that this? Out of the
That's them.
7,
That's the ones. No. Those so only 14 positions at Division of Fish and Wildlife are locally funded, to include the director. So,
Okay, so the one that you have in the parentheses, that's not tied to the 70 federally funded.
that is correct. It's not.
Okay. These are the same 7 that you had listed earlier under the enforcement, correct? Okay, so
Yes.
it's just duplicative.
Thank you. How long has the director been vacant for Fish and Wildlife, and why is it not filled yet?
November.
November of last year.
Mhm.
Has there been any applicant who has submitted interest in?
We had mentioned earlier we purposely slow rolled the announcement because we're using the lapse from that to cover some of the
Okay,
current
okay.
shortages.
And so, is there an acting director?
Right here.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Ms.
got it.
Rosemary Camacho.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we've been at it for 2.5 hours, so we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back for anyone that needs to take that time. Thank you. We now rise back from recess, and I would like to hand the floor over to the secretary to proceed with this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe the computer went to sleep or something. Trying to move the slide to the next. Here we go. All right, our next division is Division of Land Registration and Survey. Mandated by Public Law 3-79 to survey pre-war properties, record documentation and maps, provide review and clearance of all submitted checkprints, and provide research areas with professional services to our public. Here's the current impact over at our Division of Land Registration and Survey. 11 total FTEs, 7 are filled, and 4 are vacant. 1 pickup truck, 1 chainsaw, and some survey equipments. There is no revolving fund currently, but we are working on creating one because the services we are providing a bunch of services and they are costly, making copies of those ginormous maps and doing research work and those types of things. We're working on coming up with a fee structure for some of the services we're providing. Some things that the division is doing, collaborating with the municipalities are here. A lot of it have to do with surveys. We have very limited personnel to do these things, and so we do our best to provide the services to some of the government agencies and some of these pretty old property documents. Some of the needs and some of the things that we are currently working on is to try to digitize all of these they're now like fragile documents because they're starting to break apart. They're pretty old. We're working with the grants and the administration to find some funding to do this. We are aware that the court, for instance, is moving into that where they're digitizing all of their documents and making them potentially available online through a cloud. We are interested in doing that. We submitted some applications for grants, and we're still waiting on the results of those. Currently, there is a law that requires that pre-war properties, if there are any issues, be adjudicated by a 3-member team that consists of a chairman and 2 land investigators. And so we currently have a chairman and an investigator 1, but we need 1 more to make a quorum. Currently, we don't have one. We are in need also of a surveyor trainee. And the office space listed here is I don't know if you all recall, but the Department of Lands and Natural Resources used to be situated in Lower Base because of the conditions there. And that used to house the Secretary's Office, Parks and Recreation, and Lands and Survey. We've since moved out early this year, and we've dispersed across several places. The Secretary's Office is up here in Capitol Hill. in one of the housings that used to be belong to CJPA, and uh, Parks and Recreation and Lands and Survey are sharing an office space in that building that's by the Carolinian Affairs office, and we are hopeful that uh, projects that are supposed to be ongoing get completed, so these two offices divisions can have their own space. That is the end of lands and registration. If you wish, we'll continue on to Parks and Recreation. So, Division of Parks and Recreation is tasked with beautifying and maintaining all of the parks and recreation areas in our Commonwealth. And oh, did this thing jump? There we go. Sorry. Here is a Here's a slide that speaks to the number of the sheer volume of the areas that they have to cover. Um, Aside from the beaches and the pavilions and parks and basketballs and office spaces and things like that, also the maintenance of the side of the roads and uh, things of that nature. And then oftentimes we'll get called by other agencies like MVA or Public Lands or the mayor's office, even Parks, Public Works, to collaborate. And if the areas are pretty big, to team up and handle them. Staffing situation currently is there are 40 FTEs at, at Parks, and 33 of those are filled. And as quickly as we try to fill these positions, some things happen. Folks are looking for greener pastures elsewhere, and other reasons having to vacate the positions. Um, Through the generous partnership and uh, of some of your offices and the grants office and the administration's office, we've managed to accrue a good amount of equipment to execute the works that is required of the division. There is a list of equipment that we currently have, um and the revolving fund down there uh, is what is the current balance. We're at 125,000. Again, here's just an example of the areas that our Parks and Recreation have to cover. It's never ending. Whatever the weather is, it's still the job's still there to get done and requires people to do it. Um, some of the challenges we're having right now is is that we have a current 350 some $1,000 in deficit um, for just the Division of Parks and Recreation, and that is from the budget that reflected the memorandum of agreement between DLNR and Department of Public Lands, wherein the department DPL is supposed to cover 50% of the personnel cost, um, and the administration and budget folks who saw that agreement reflected that in the budget, and so the general fund only supports 50% of Parks and Rec's salaries. The other 50 is supposed to be covered by DPL. And so the number of vacancies that we continue to accumulate, we cannot recruit because OMB and finance will not certify the position given that we have that deficit in there. So if we lost 10 people, we're not able to recruit and replace because there is a hold on recruitment due to the deficit. We're kind of stuck on that. So I think this is a moment for lessons learned for us anyway. So we're requesting, instead of continuing with the MOA, which is not worked out for us, we're requesting to restore the funding level for Parks and Rec from 50% to 100% moving forward. That way we are not dependent on the MOA that is non-functional. This slide here just shows you, wanted to bring to your attention the part of the MOA that DLNR has been working off of. That portion there that says DLNR Parks and Recreation shall assign sufficient DLNR PNR staff at up to 50% of staff time to DPL to maintain the Can Pacific property and all Commonwealth Parks and Recreation areas on DPL's behalf. So what it comes down to is a differences in interpretation of this MOU. I paid attention to when DPL was present here in front of you all, and one of the questions or statement was that they would show up for a week or 3 days and then they disappear, meaning the Parks and Recreation folks. I will remind you the other slide here of the volume that we're having to cover, right? So if the expectation is for DPR Parks and Rec to remain at Can Pacific or Manigaha or Marpi area for 100% of the time, who is going to cover the rest of the recreational areas that people actually go and use? I believe the OMB special assistant had mentioned that, the ones that the areas we should be focusing on are the ones that are widely used. And in our interpretation, we share a cross jurisdiction over these properties as they are all public lands, is what we are maintaining. But right now it is assigned to DLNR Parks and Rec. We recognize that. We also recognize that we're in a fiscal constraint situation. And so this was a creative way to try to help each other out, meet the public's needs, and move things forward. So, be that as it may, this is our ask, and we'll use this situation as a lesson learned, and request to please restore 100% of Parks and Rec's funding to the general fund. I'm sure, I believe we send you all copies of the MOA. These are just some of our challenges that we face throughout the department. Utilities costs. We're trying as much as possible to move these onto federal grants. But there are some obligations that have to be taken care of at the local level. We just go past these, and you can reference them later on. See if we can get to some of the stuff here. The initiatives, these are a list of current um infrastructure projects that were damaged during the typhoons that are eligible for FEMA funding, and we are working with the PAO office to try to get them moving. The processing is a little bit slow to get these things off the ground, but I think we can get to where we need to go here soon. Recently, I just learned about the program under the HUD NMHC where they actually have funding that is meant to cover the matching requirements, and so we're working with the PAO and NMHC to try to get those things off the ground. I believe this is our last slide here. Issue some of the assistance that we're trying to get from the legislature is support to get these items move forward. We're trying to do something that Guam has already implemented on Guam. It is something called the CNMI or the invasive species inspection fees. Um, Currently, we have funding that is coming from the federal government, and that is all good and great. But at some point, we need to start looking at how to uh, be a little bit more self-sufficient and self-sustaining. And so, this is one way that we are thinking of coming up with some fees to allow for the containers that come in from abroad to be charged a minimal fee that would go towards uh, ensuring invasive species type work is continued. I just had a brief conversation with your legal counsel regarding the ask to get to create a law that allows for MPLT to receive and invest on DLNR's behalf the funding for the mitigation bank, um, and we'd like to work on that sometime very soon. CNMI will be hosting the Coral Reef, the 49th Coral Reef Task Force, U.S. Task Force, in November, and we are trying to push for legislation that will recognize coral reefs as national natural infrastructure. This this initiative will also open the CNMI up to receiving federal funds. It should like natural disasters happen, and it corals being recognized now as natural infrastructures will be eligible for funding for damages and things like that to our coral reefs. Submerged lands, there is a draft circulating. I know that the law says that DLNR is supposedly the authority over submerged lands. This is well and good, but the law also says that anything that has to do with leases and things of that nature to submerged lands, the funding will go directly to DPL, and so that does not give any opportunity for DLNR to do management on those said resources, and so uh, our ask is that we amend. Trying to think if there is currently something. I do believe something was added to say like DPL's leases to include some funding to go to Indigenous Affairs and Caribbean Affairs, and perhaps something like that, a management type fee to be assessed to go towards the LNR to manage the resources. So that is forthcoming. Um, I'm sure you all, some of you were here when the SBC folks were here, General Counsel or Chair of SBC was in town. And SBC has been a critical partner for the resource agencies, even health, agriculture. We've all used a lot of that knowledge and information, technical guidance from SBC over the years. And however, that's come to a screeching halt because we just learned that there is a whopping almost $1 million worth of unpaid dues that CNMI owes SBC. And we just wanted to highlight that here just as a reminder that folks have committed to helping cure that outstanding cost. And I'm sure the administration will be coming up with some. They are in current conversation with SBC to figure out some kind of payment plan moving forward. And then the last item on here and is one that I didn't really want to get into, but I think after 2 years of being in this position and folks understanding the nature of the position and what it's asking, that some degree of equalness need to be done here. And so I refer to this particular legislation that has put a hold on the Secretary of DLNR's salary. As y'all are aware, what you're asking of this position is to be the front line to local, federal, national, international folks on this very diverse field of natural resource management. And so looking at the pay scale over there, there's a great deal of disparity. You're expecting the person filling this position that is ahead of nearly 300 souls and millions of dollars and interacting with all the federal and regional and international folks and the compensation that is, you would want to attract someone of high caliber and quality to this. And I don't think what is currently being advertised is at that level, nor is it fair among the colleagues listed above. So I'm hopeful that this legislation during this process of budget do something about this thing to come up with some kind of a more equal thing for all these folks. And with that, Mr. Chair, I close my presentation.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for pointing this out. I mean, just looking at the legislation, which was even done in the 18th legislature, I don't know why it wasn't included, but if that's something for the committee to consider, is the difference, if we were to make it equal to the other positions you see up on top, will you be able to use some federal funds to cover the shortfall in that difference between what you're getting now and what the others are getting?
I believe that can be worked out. I just haven't really explored it.
Okay. Thank you for bringing it up. And if our LA can just prepare that as a possible provision, just to see if that will be considered by the committee. Going up to some of the things you brought up, digitization. Have you worked with the NMC archive uh, that was recently signed into law that strengthens their capabilities and their powers, and so they are in charge of preserving some of these documents and I believe digitizing some of them. Has that been
No, we have not explored that yet. That's new for me. I don't know if my team is aware of that, but uh, just recently there was a flurry of activities from federal partners coming in, and understanding that everybody is pretty stretched in, we tried to look outside and see if we can put in some applications uh, for that particular thing using the model. I think that the justice system is, judiciary is doing right now.
but that would be another option maybe that could be considered. Can we go back to the MOU slide? Is there an issue as to how DPL defines all Commonwealth parks and recreation areas? And that some of the work you do on those parks could be counted as part of that 50% to DPL?
Yeah, I cannot speak to how they interpret, but in our reading of this agreement, it's kind of spelled out there.
Because I think the issue that was brought up with DPL was just the manner in which DPR was trying to build DPL. And so it's just a matter of changing the description of the services offered. And so it's more of a matter of professional services as opposed to personnel, because DPL, I guess they don't want to show on the records that they're paying additional personnel, but rather using their operational funds to pay for professional services, which is what DPR provides. And
I
so
think it's a little bit more than that, in that their definition of DPL jurisdiction is limited to Can Pacific, Managaha, and the resort in Marpi. All others are ineligible.
well,
is
and that's
what
why
I'm
I'm
understanding.
wondering what's the definition of all Commonwealth parks and recreation. I mean, that to us looks like it's everything that are public lands that are also in addition to those three areas that you've mentioned. So is
Correct.
that an issue that DPL is bringing up, or is that just has that been discussed with DPL and that these parks could be counted as part of the professional services that DPR is providing?
It's a source of ongoing conversation. Yes, the interpretation. What is your jurisdiction? What is my jurisdiction? I'm saying this is all our jurisdiction. Let's help each other out. And so
Right.
we got kind of snagged up in the process.
But I think one of the major problems right now is being able to get paid for what you've already provided. So has that been addressed in terms of amending your billing to DPL so that you can try to get paid for what has already been rendered?
We're still submitting invoices. When was the last time we?
Yeah, we did submit. We've been submitting invoices, but they keep returning them back because of the one they're saying it's a rendered service, which is only the resort. But we still continue billing them because we're following what's in the MOU, which is including all Commonwealth Parks and Recreation, and it's Commonwealth. This include the second and third senatorial district. We have staff that are under 50% from second senatorial district and third. If I'm not mistaken, there's 4 in Rhoda, and I think 2 in Tinian. And 1 in Tinian is right now under my watch due to has a medical history with the wife. So instead of going on leave, I took him with us, and we're assisting him and whenever he's available.
Thank you. I see we have I'd like to recognize the SA for OMB. Miss Vicky Villagomez. I know, Miss Vicky, is there anything that you can do to address the issue that they're going through, seeing as how it is being proposed again without having to address the problems that they're going through right now? Otherwise, they're going to be in this predicament again next fiscal year, where once they lose employees, their account is over expended. And so, have that discussion been made at the cabinet meetings or just meetings with DPL?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, we had the opportunity to sit down together with, the team from DLNR and the team from DPL, but just like how the secretary here described, I think there is, both sides are interpreting the MOU differently, but it's there. It includes other parks and beaches and whatever, all public lands. I think, like you mentioned earlier also, that we need to take a look at how the bill for collection that was submitted by or was prepared by DLNR, that we need to make some changes on how it's read. Like you mentioned, that we should indicate its rendered services and also provide the activities behind, to support that big request.
But seeing as how now, I guess the ask is to be funded 100% because that process isn't working. I mean, how could we get to the point where we can get DLNR paid, but also to ensure that moving forward, we're not going through this issue again where DPL is not paying anything. And now that we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, if that bill isn't paid, then that money will go to MPOT, right? And so, or DPL uses it for some other operational expense and not pay out what has already been rendered by DPR.
At this point, I think it's important that we ask the Attorney General to assist us to intervene and get the two parties together and fix the way the billing is. We want to proceed with how that active MOU that has no indefinite end period, because that MOU was prepared by the Office of the Attorney General.
But I mean, whoever is involved, because at the start of last fiscal year, right, that was a proposal by the administration. So I don't know how that discussion came about and that agreement came forward. But that also we're hoping that once this has been resolved and it is working well, then that's something that we can extend to the other districts and try to, I guess, truly identify or define what this Commonwealth parks and recreation areas are, so that there's no question whether it's just those three areas that they have to maintain, whereas this is something that could involve a wider range of the location that Parks and Recs manages. And so,
and I just want to add on, but there is a billing that was paid. So there is a billing that has been honored by DPL. So I don't see why now the following billing was not.
Is that with the current secretary or the prior secretary?
The current secretary.
Yes, current. We did submit, and
after these discrepancies have been addressed, or this was prior to any issues that were brought up recently?
During, while we're still having conversations, it was a painstaking process to try to balance both, but there's some amount that was paid out.
Okay.
So I just want to add, because I have spoken to Director Cruz here, and I was making efforts to try and get the his division paid by DPL. So in my conversation with Secretary Santos, she did say that, you know, when the invoice was paid, at that time they just paid it, right? But it was MPOT who made a big deal out of it because I guess according to the law, they're not supposed to pay for personnel costs outside of their approved FTEs. And that's why she was asking if the invoices could be just revised and resubmitted to reflect that it's services rendered for grounds maintenance at these properties, and then attach the supporting documents, and that they would be more than happy to pay. So, you know, if that's what's delaying the payment, is it possible for Parks and Rec to just, you know, revise the invoices and resubmit so that you guys can get paid? According to her, that's the only hold back, you know, is because MPOT has, you know, been keeping an eye on that particular expense, only because they're not supposed to pay for personnel costs outside of what's been approved for their operations. So just thought I'd share that piece of information. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it also showed up on their audit it was flagged during their audit. So that's why they're being very careful about having invoices paid and referencing, you know, personnel cost. So if we can work together and just accommodate their request to reflect a different description on the invoice itself, I think that's doable, right?
Maybe I'll meet with Evelyn
Okay.
Sablan and
Okay.
figure that out. But the last time they didn't bring that issue out, so we're just following how when we turn in the invoice they receive, they don't even mention to us until we're trying to recruit, and
Sure.
we've been
Yes.
told that we're in deficit, and which is, you
I
know,
completely understand, and
yeah.
understanding now the reasoning behind it, right? If we can just kind of move forward and resolve the issue by you know, not really, you know, just working together so that the payments can be dispersed, right? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification, Vice Chair. At this time, I recognize Senator Paul.
Oh, just following on that line of questioning, is this something that once the DPL signs off with um, the new developer for Camp Pacific, UN, this MOU, or is it you know not necessary that it's tied up with Camp Pacific, right? Because we're talking about Parks and Rec properties that belong to DPL. So I don't know, maybe attorney help us also in this on this issue, because we might want to include other parks that truly are under DPL that we have to really take care and beautify and maintain, right? So it shouldn't be dependent on Camp Pacific property. That I just want to point that out, and which leads me to my question of parks. For example, on Rhoda Pinatan Park, right? That's under DPL. Maybe assigned to Parks and Rec. I understand our mayor has a federal grant that she applied, and that she wants to do something in the Pinatan Park, renovate. But she's asking that that property be given to the municipality. But and you know, either way, as long as we use the money, right, the federal grant. But is there a way that federal grant can be given to, I don't know, Parks and Rec, so that they can then apply or be the recipient of the grant, so we can proceed with the grant money and project? I don't expect an answer now, but hopefully you guys can help Parks and Rec and Secretary so that we can have a policy, right? So that we just don't have every year changing it. If anyone wants to apply for a federal grant for a pavilion or for, I guess, what other project within the area, that we can have a way to work with the mayors so that they can have an application and let that not be the obstacle to proceed with the project. So that's my main. Yeah, please, you wanted to.
Okay, regarding the park in Rhoda, there's two projects regarding the SCORP, including two here. That's ministered through OGM, which is the Pakpak Beach, the Children's Park in Cobbler, and the Motmus Park in Rhoda, and I don't know what's the other one. But there's two projects that was awarded through SCORP. Right now, that parks are been, I think it's awarded already. We
Okay,
did a
but
groundbreaking.
I think it's with Pinatan
Oh.
Park that maybe that's a different grant. So I'm just saying that yeah, I don't see why they couldn't do it even with the park being under DPL.
Okay, just to clarify, I tried to do the one-star permit at Patsu Park. I couldn't acquire permit because we don't have document that is land designated to DLNR. So it's still under public land. So Terry had to approve me to acquire a one-star permit. So meaning that there's no designation right now. It still sits on it's still under public land. We're only by
Designation.
yeah, no, it hasn't been designated. But when they passed Public Law 11-106, gave us the authority to manage and maintain. So if any investor will want to come and build a building there, I cannot say no because it's under us. It has to go through public land. So we have joint jurisdiction on both agencies were there to manage and maintain, but DPO has the property owner because they're 15-2. They are the custodian of the all public lands on all Commonwealth.
Okay. So hopefully, Director, you can help us with Pinatan and you can be the referee there, how we can move that project, because otherwise it's going to be extended and extended and we'll never proceed, right?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I don't have documents stating that we have the land designation, just like how DCCA. This Capitol Hill baseball field is still under DCCA. I had to do a lot of run around because it was under sports and recreation before. So now it's under parks and recreation. So, when they amend the law, we carry the burden of, we're the one in charge now. So DCCA still is the property owner, which is where we don't have any problem with it. Like the older recreational the softball, Capitol softball field is still under DCCA to land designation. They need to return it back and then redesignate it. But I don't have any proper document that's designated to Parks and Recreation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just quick clarification under the tourist sites that you listed as areas that you help maintain, MARPI. Is that inclusive of like which tourist sites there?
Okay, on you can look
MARPI.
at public law 14-27. All grounds were transferred to parks, which is MBA.
Okay.
So now all prior what MBA were maintaining has to be on us now.
Okay.
So all jurisdiction is that falls under DLNR Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
All tourist sites that was previously maintained by MBA prior.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a like a shrine or some kind of like next to the command post, right? Like before the command post, there's like I think a Japanese shrine or something. Is that also part of?
All tourist sites.
Okay.
It says on the public law 14-27.
Do
All
you
tourist
know
sites.
if the particular land area was leased by like the Japanese community or something or?
DPO should know that.
Okay,
No,
so we need to check because
yeah.
if it is right, or I mean, if you guys are helping maintain it, maybe they can contribute a little bit to your operations to help.
We continue
maintenance.
maintaining it.
Yes,
Yeah, no matter what, because
Right.
the law says that we're obligated to manage and maintain.
Okay.
Yeah, but regarding leasing property or all, that has to go through
Right.
them.
Okay, I will verify.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have. Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, back to Parks and Recs. Are you getting any funding from MBA?
Not for personnel, but other than when there's events coming up and they need assistance, I said, okay, we'll provide the labor, but at least provide us the material that we need because we don't have operational.
So what about like repair for some of these facilities within the parks, do you get some assistance from MVA?
Yes, we do. Even the Saipan local delegation, and not only that, it's they applied an EDA grant for the tourist sites. There's a big improvement in the tourist sites, but they're doing an A&E design right now.
Okay. Does Saipan MVA have something similar to a Parks and Recs division within MVA that goes out and that takes care of these sites? And
Only on second and third senatorial district, not here.
first and second?
Yeah.
So here on Saipan, it rests solely on Parks and Recs,
Yes.
but you don't get any funding, not even from the hotel occupancy tax or anything like that. Do you get any?
Not from the hot tax. We don't get any. But I know the mayor's office has received those things.
Okay. It's just something to consider because I know Rhode Antinian, they invest heavily on their kind of like division of Parks and Recs within MVA that goes out and addresses some of these recreational parks. But I'm trying to think of like maybe this is something that could be transferred over solely to Parks and Recs, provided that portion of the hotel occupancy tax goes to help fund some of these activities. So that's something that we can consider and allow MVA to focus more on just the marketing aspect of the agency. Senator Ju, do you have anything for the first round?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just if we can go back to the legislative issue slide, Secretary, I wanted to kind of get more guidance on. Okay. I don't know if you recall earlier, I mentioned something about invasive species potentially making suggesting to see how in the code right now where it allows you to promulgate rules to further provide enforcement for raw materials coming in for invasive. Right now you don't charge anything for all these vehicles coming in, like surface vessels or airline. You don't have any. You don't levy any fees.
Not DLNR, no. I
So-
think that's a customs finance portion.
Okay.
And then because they merged quarantine
Sure.
with customs, we've kind of
So basically, you lost that opportunity, no? Is that what you're
not
saying?
necessarily, the only lost. I'm sorry, yeah, it can be revisited.
Mm. No, I mean, because I'm trying to help how we can get get you that, and if does it need legislation, or can you just ask the governor to guide you with the promulgation of rules, maybe a directive?
That's something we'll investigate. But I know that Guam had a piece of legislation that is now law that created a body that's supposed to look out for all these invasive species related things.
And again, if that's the desire, and the most, I guess appropriate way to do it, then we'll do it, because we're all very share the same concern. And I appreciate your suggestion about that next bullet point. That's really a good proposal. I don't know how. I mean, what kind of legislation that requires, but if there's something that we need, you need the help from this body. So, I saw an op-ed just not too long ago on the newspaper on the Wildlife Action Plan. Is this your contractor or is this your federal employee? Wildlife Action Plan, August 28 meeting.
I'm sorry, will you please repeat the
Okay,
question?
there's the local division of Fish and Wildlife is hosting a CNMI Wildlife Action Plan.
Mhm.
What are we gonna get from there? I mean, what do you want? What are you asking of the community or from the elected?
We're
for that
just
matter?
asking all of our public stakeholders to come and engage with us and chime in on what their what their values are so that we can include it in our wildlife action plan. We update it every 5 years, and it also allows us to be eligible for different federal funds.
Okay. Without reading much into it, so I'm trying to, I don't want the chairman to be responsible with lunch, but so what are we? When is the deadline?
I don't remember the dates for each of the islands, but I
Yeah.
believe that they've already sent out engagement requests to try to get some dates on the calendars, and I can get that information to you.
Yeah, I mean it's in the paper. I guess what I'm trying to get to, ma'am, is the marine protection area, more so than ever. I've been asked numerous times by my constituents and the concerns, primarily on the second senatorial, with regards to considering a MPA on the very thin area of our marine ecosystem on Tinian. And if this is the portal or one of the portals that we can ask that question for guidance, because it appears that it's kind of like a master plan almost, actionable items to get for grants to do that. I know that you guys are more aware of these things, but I think before the legislature can even come up with a narrative of legislation, we need guidance from the experts, your agency, and of course the secretary, and folks like this, like this individual here, so that we can be able to make sure that whatever we're trying to do is understood by our constituents, our residents, especially the ones that frequent the marine life for fishing, for subsistence or sustenance. So
I will make sure when I return to the office to request that we reach out to your office to start to set up some communication so that we can move towards that. If you're wanting to establish an MPA, we'll lay the groundwork and figure out what we need before we do that.
And and I want to go back again to the 20-44. It does have that categorically, kind of started the process. And if that is again the law that we can just use to extend it to the other islands, then we don't need another law. We just need to recognize it per se. So, and I don't have any more, and I thank you for your time, Secretary. I recognize bullet number 5. We're listening intently. It's a reasonable ask. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. You back. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Senator Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Can we go back one slide to new initiative and projects, Secretary? Yeah. Speaking of bullets, actually, I want to make comments to see if you can include one more bullet there, Secretary. And this is actually, as we're all aware, as directed by the U.S. Congress at the request of Congressman Kilili, the National Park Service conducted a study of the Rota's prehistoric and historic resources and limestone forests. The study evaluated the national significance of the area and the suitability and feasibility of designating the area as a unit of the national park system. The study finds that the prehistoric, historic, and limestone forest resources of Rota are nationally significant and that areas of the island are suitable for inclusion in the national park system. The study additionally finds that limestone forest and Chamorro archaeological sites within the study area are conditionally feasible for inclusion in the national park system, dependent on support from the Commonwealth, the Northern Mariana Islands government, and the development of a management agreement, support from Rota Sinamay residents, and sufficient funding for park operations. I just want to take this opportunity to emphasize the importance of this study, and please assist us. Where do we go from here, as far as locally and looking for federal sources? Although this does not actually recommend that it be included in the national park system, but where do we go from here? This is a very detailed study A lot of public hearings were held, and I hope that you can, under Division of Park Services, um, um, direct us. Where do we go from here? We can make that one of your initiative. I really appreciate it. Think that this would be a big benefit for Commonwealth, no? So, si susumasi, como si nata include este talo. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. I recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's lunchtime, so I'll make it very quick. But it was shared with me by 500 Cells that there was a grant that was awarded to them for like a little bit over 700K, but because it was under DLN, under your department, that your office took the money instead. And so, could you just I guess either validate that, or if it's true, like what would from what was explained to me, the money was to be used at the Guma segment to repair the damages after the typhoon. But because it was under DLNR, your office took it, and so they had to go find another source of funds to, repair their facility. And so I would like to know if whether or not that's true, and if it is, what was the money spent on, and is there still money left over from that money?
The story is true. So this happened before I came on board. My understanding is that 500 Cells was given that area to utilize. The storm hit. The area is still under DLNR's jurisdiction, right? And so when they assessed the damages and came up with the amount, it is awarded to DLNR. And before I got in, the leadership at the time figured they needed to use that money to fix something else, since the property was now back to DPL and DPL to Indigenous Affairs or something like that. So I guess in the previous management's thoughts, that is no longer our thing. We need to invest in our own infrastructure, and so move the money to invest on the 2 housing units up here in Capitol Hill that will house the Division of Lands and Survey, who currently is homeless and is over at CAO. But that is where that's at. I did have an opportunity to sit down with representatives from 500 Cells and discuss the topic, and it was a decision that was made prior to myself coming in, but understanding that it made sense at the time, I supported moving forward, and so that's where we're at.
Well, I appreciate the clarification, and I'm glad to hear that the Department of Lands or Division of Lands and Survey will no longer be homeless because you have found a home for them. So the entire award will be spent on, I guess, the rehab of the 2 buildings.
That is the plan, yes.
And was there any money set aside from, I guess, under, geez, what is it's still, I think it's still under DCCA, HPO, that funds set aside to also help rehab some of the buildings here on Capitol Hill?
We had requested to also be included in that project. I'm not sure where we're at in the process.
Okay.
In my mind, whoever goes first, let's hurry up and get these things done.
Got it.
I'm not sure where they're at in their permitting process, or we're working also with the PAO office.
Okay.
So it's like a race to the finish line. Which one of you two can get me to
Okay.
complete quicker?
Thank you. And that's all I have for that. But just on the digitization, right? Again, the chair has mentioned NMC. I believe also Commerce may have an industrial size type of scanning equipment to include maybe even DPW, right? Because they do scan those large blueprints. And because of the importance of preserving those really old maps dating back prior to, World War II and even older than that, I just highly recommend to seek some kind of assistance from those departments, maybe even the courthouse, just to help preserve what you have now, because they're breaking apart, until you come up with a long-term plan. So with that, that's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice. In closing, just some things to consider. We're going to begin budget allocations within the next week or two. And so I hope that maybe we can get some progress in regards to the discussions with DPL to see if that's something that should still be considered moving forward, or if we're going to have to end up looking for the additional 50% elsewhere. Something also to consider with your new initiatives. This was a discussion that we had on ROTA in terms of whether you can include as part of your grant submission funding to do a study on like the species on ROTA in terms of fish, because we've been getting a lot of reports from DFW ROTA that there may be possible illegal fishing using scuba, not from the people of ROTA, but the visitors, whether it be Guam or somewhere up north, and so they don't have the resources to go out and patrol whenever they receive these reports. But in order to get maybe an understanding of what which species have been depleted or are going through some issues, so that we can extend the what's that term, the protected area, just so that we can keep track of what's out there, and also the possibility of maybe seeing how we can extend Fish and Wildlife's authority to maybe even search incoming vessels, fishing vessels that they're not over harvesting, or using these illegal methods to fish within our shores. And so that's something that could be looked at, and not just the fish part, but even do a study on the maybe by tagging or keep counting the coconut crab population on ROTA, as well as deer. It's easy for one hunter to say, oh, we have a lot of crabs, but without having a full picture of our population, we can't determine whether we should keep allowing for special permit periods, or suspending some of the restrictions on hunting, or even extending the hunting period. And so those are some of the requests that we're receiving from the community in terms of extending these special periods, but without having data as to the population. That's we want to hesitate, or we want to proceed with caution on before taking any action that we get the data. And so that could be covered by some grants as part of your new initiative. We'd appreciate you looking into that. Additionally, we appreciate you taking the time to propose some legislative initiatives that the committee can consider, and that's something that, again, we'll deliberate on. And if there's any additional requests or information that you would like to share with the committee that weren't discussed today, please feel free to reach out to any members of the committee, and we'll try to see how we can address that in the budget deliberation. And so again, I'll offer you the week to prepare any of that, so that while we're discussing the allocations, we can take those into consideration. Just one more question, which was brought up. Do you know how the certification is going in terms of what Guam is now requiring? I mean, I don't know how much of produce are being exported out of Saipan, but at least for ROTA, there seems to be a increased request of certification from any fruits or vegetables that are heading into Guam. Is that causing some issues within DLNR, or just being able to meet the request for a lot of these certification?
Customs and Biosecurity, I think that they're the ones that issue those certifications. So any product coming from Saipan, Tinian, and Rura to Guam, Guam is requiring that we issue that certification that they are in fact from here.
Okay.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Do you know if there are any existing statute that also allows for agriculture to do like a quality inspection on exported goods, like quality control or anything like that?
So it's usually dependent on the receiving jurisdiction, right? So and then also on our capability here. For instance, I believe what you're talking about is like a phytosanitary certificate, where you bring it to a government agency, they inspect the product or the goods that you're gonna take out of Saipan, and that is usually something that will be required by Guam to bring with your plant or your fruit or something, certificate of origin and a phytosanitary, which essentially means it was inspected by some certified person that there's no bugs or soil or anything like that.
No, but
so-
even like quality control from our end locally before products are being exported to ensure that, when there's this made or produced and a CNMI attached to it, that it's something that we've taken initiative to inspect and ensure that the products going out meet the standards that are expected from the buyer. And so, I mean, it has been discussion. I know there has been legislation on a made in the CNMI product seal, but if we're gonna attach that onto like something like kamuti or taro that is leaving Rhoda, we want to ensure that the integrity is there in terms of is that something that are you aware of any statute that authorizes agriculture to
currently
inspect?
none exist for that particular purpose.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you for your time here today, Secretary, and thank you to your team for being here and for answering questions from the committee. I know there are several things that were discussed that we may be needing additional information on, and if that could be provided within the next week, we'd appreciate that. Before we dismiss, is there anything else you'd like to offer the committee before leaving?
None, sir, except to thank the members of my team that are here and all the staff and management of the Department of Fish and Lands and Natural Resources. They are amazing group of people that continue to do amazing work, and we expect to keep delivering on behalf of our CMI public. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Igasomar, and thank you, S.A. Villagomez, for being here today. At this time, you are here to excuse, and to the members, just if you can just stay briefly for a few minutes after we adjourn, just to discuss some things. And so with that, we move on to the next item on the agenda, announcements. Anything from the members? If not, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So move.
All right, motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are hereby adjourned at 12:53 p.m.